Most hunters step into the tower to become legends, but this man only wants to cover his rent and stay hidden under his blankets. Then one morning, he wakes to find that his only sharks have not simply vanished. Their cut-off heads are neatly placed at his doorstep, wrapped like presents with pretty red ribbons, introducing the greatest coward ever seen. He has no talent, lives with crushing anxiety, and avoids danger as if it were a deadly plague. But the system drags him into a deadly game with one rule: summon spirits to fight in his place. The problem is that these spirits are not heroes. They are S-rank madmen, and he is forced to keep track of their satisfaction ratings like a driver trying to please serial killers. He attempts to fail on purpose so he can stay unnoticed, but his summons twist his orders and end up erasing entire floors in seconds, smashing every record ever made. Now the government is after him, the world believes he is some kind of god, and he is terrified out of his mind. No one is prepared for the accidental rise of this weakling who ends up waking the wild beast inside himself. The story opens in a neighborhood that looks completely abandoned by hope. It is the kind of place where studio apartments feel like storage boxes, and the people nearby spend their days shouting over stolen shoes or simply complaining about the filthy air. Moving through this miserable setting is the protagonist, Banju Hyuk. At 25 years old, Hyuk is living the dream, if that dream were a full disaster made of poverty. He is balancing 3 part-time jobs as a cashier, a waiter, and a day laborer, yet his bank account is still nothing but an empty ruin. He sits inside his 180-square-foot rooftop apartment, eating cheap instant ramen for dinner once again. He understands the truth. He is sinking in debt. He has no special talent at all, and the only thing he owns is a body that still has not given in from pure exhaustion. He has already accepted that he is a miserable failure with no real future ahead of him. But because the universe enjoys making a joke out of him, a blue system notification suddenly appears right in front of his face. It tells him that he has awakened. Hyuk nearly chokes on his noodles. He stares at the floating message, wondering if his mind has finally broken. An awakening is supposed to be a winning ticket, a chance to strike gold and change everything. But he is not stupid. He knows the tower is not some playground. It is a place where people are ripped apart by monsters, crushed by traps or frozen solid. He instantly regrets, at least in his head, ever giving up his part-time jobs. His thoughts begin to spin out of control. He imagines every possible way he could die. He admits to himself that he avoids conflict no matter what. He is the type who crosses the road just to avoid passing by a construction site. He openly sees himself as a coward. He tries to tell himself that this has to be nothing more than a hallucination caused by exhaustion. He decides to test it just in case, and when he calls out for a status window, horror hits him. The system truly shows him as Banju Hyuk, affiliated with the Black Tower Level 1. His class is Summoner. 3 skills are listed under his name: Designated Summon, Random Summon, and Summon General skills. His eyes stop at the inventory slot, and in that moment he realizes this is horribly real. He reads the explanation for his trait. A summoner can call forth spirits, golems, or demonic beasts. That immediately makes him wonder what kind of summoner he has become. Feeling ridiculous, he chooses to test it right there inside his room. He calls out for a random summon. He expects absolutely nothing. Everyone knows skills only function inside the tower. Using one outside of it should be impossible. He feels stupid for even trying, but then the system responds, confirming that random summon has been activated. A bright purple light bursts through the room. Hyuk panics as a figure begins to take shape. It is not a monster or some impressive dragon. It is just a man. A human with red hair stands there looking confused. Hyuk is left speechless. He never even knew summoning people was possible. The summoned man sniffs the air. He pays no attention to the strange magical event and fixes all his focus on the pot of ramen. He asks for a single bite. Hyuk can only stare at him. He has just pulled off something unbelievable with magic, and what appears before him is a freeloader asking for dinner. The red-haired man starts eating the noodles, complaining about the spice as if the place belongs to him. Hyuk is completely lost. How did the skill work outside the tower, and who exactly is this man? The status window quickly offers an answer. It explains that human summons are divided into tiers, just like a gacha game. The ranks begin at rare and rise all the way to legendary, special, super rare. The system also states a strict rule. The summon must protect the summoner above all else, and the summon must obey every command without fail. Hyuk immediately clings to that last part. Absolute obedience. That at least sounds useful. The system then reveals the identity of the noodle thief. His name is John Kozak, an SR rank being. His title is the Mad Assassin of the Cruel Assassins Guild. Then Hayek is struck by a violent headache. It feels as if his brain is being torn apart and rewritten. He is flooded with Kozak's memories. He sees flashes of Kozak killing people with ease. He sees the man wrapping the cut heads of his victims like gifts. It becomes clear that the title Mad Assassin is not some exaggeration. Kozak's life came to an end after he failed to kill the Empire's strongest swordmaster. Hayek returns to himself in complete terror. He is trapped inside a cramped room with a serial killer. He jerks backward when Kozak steps toward him. The assassin quickly lowers himself, apologizes for frightening him, and respectfully asks for orders. Hayek remembers the rule of absolute obedience. He decides to test it with a mission that carries real risk. He orders the legendary assassin to wash the ramen pot and clean the table. Kozak does it at once. There are no complaints. He moves fast, works neatly, and stays polite through all of it. Hayek watches in silence and starts thinking this might actually be useful, but he still needs proof, so he decides to push things further. He orders Kozak to bark like a dog, without dignity and without hesitation. The deadly assassin drops to the floor and starts barking. Hyuk is stunned. The control is complete. Just when he begins to calm down, someone pounds hard on the front door, and a voice demands that Banju Hyuk open it. Hyuk freezes. He suddenly remembers what day it is. It is the day to pay the interest. He owes 10 million won to a loan shark because no bank was willing to lend him money. He borrowed it for his father's hip surgery and his younger brother's college tuition. It was a desperate choice, and he has already paid 5 million in interest without reducing the original debt at all. The loan shark is now outside. Hayek starts to panic. He looks toward Kozak, who has already pulled out a dagger and stands ready to kill whoever is behind the door. Kozak asks for permission to bring back the intruder's head. Hyuk frantically stops him. Murder is not something society accepts so lightly. He orders Kozak to hide in the bathroom, stay silent, and make no sound at all. Kozak asks whether breathing is still allowed, and Hayek grants that much. Kozak slips into the bathroom just as the loan shark forces his way inside. The thug grabs Hayek by the back of the neck, demanding to know why the payment is late. Hayek apologizes over and over, lying that he has already sent it. The shark does not believe a word. He casually says that if things are really that bad, Hayek can always sell a kidney. Then the shark's lackeys speak up from the hallway. They mention that Hayek has a younger brother. They suggest that younger organs bring in a better price. The moment Hayek hears them threaten his brother, his whole body turns cold. But he knows how to survive. He forces a weak, obedient smile onto his face and assures them that he will pay. The shark warns him to be careful unless he wants to vanish without a trace, and only then does he finally leave. Once they are gone, Kozak steps back out of the bathroom. He praises Hayek for the order to hide. Hayek drops onto his bed, drained. Between the awakening, the summoning, and the threats of death, he has reached his limit. He wonders whether a coward like him can really climb the tower, but he needs the money. Kozak asks what he should do next. Hayek tells him to do whatever he wants. Kozak asks if he can watch television since it has been a long time. Hayek agrees, too confused and too tired to care. Kozak happily settles in and begins watching soap operas one after another. Hayek lies on the bed and watches the assassin in silence. He starts to feel that having another person around is not so bad. For the first time in a while, the silence is gone, and that alone brings a strange sense of comfort. He slowly falls asleep. When Hayek wakes up the next morning, the room is empty. The 6-hour summon time has ended. A notification confirms that Kozak has been unsummoned. He rubs his eyes, thinking it might have all been some kind of fever dream, and decides to get ready for work. But then he hears the television. It is still on, showing the morning news. The reporter announces urgent breaking news. Earlier that morning, the office of a private lending company called Smile Cash was destroyed. 3 victims were found at the scene, all of them beheaded. Hyuk goes completely still. Smile Cash is the company of his loan shark. The report continues, describing the scene in detail. The most disturbing part is that the victims' severed heads were decorated with red ribbons. Hyuk's face turns pale. The image instantly connects in his mind. He realizes exactly what has happened. He shouts in panic, realizing there was nothing comforting about this situation at all. He did not bring someone harmless into his life. He brought in a deranged killer who went out and butchered his debt collectors while he slept. The news keeps feeding fear into him. The report paints a clear picture of the Smile Cash murders, confirming once again the beheadings and the red ribbons placed like decorations. Hyuk knows without a doubt that this is Kozak's doing, and he understands how serious this is. His thoughts spiral out of control. He imagines himself at his cashier job, where even a normal customer holding a heart-shaped item starts to feel dangerous, or worse, someone handing him a severed head. Fear takes over completely. He becomes convinced the police will eventually trace everything back to him. Unable to function, he calls in sick for all his jobs. There is no way he can work while thinking he might be tied to a triple murder. He opens the system window to check on his so-called companion. The status screen confirms that John Kozak is indeed the Mad Assassin, an S-rank entity, with a human manifestation limit of 6 hours. Hyuk tries to summon him again, hoping for answers. But instead, the system shifts into something unexpected, like a customer service interface. A message appears asking him to rate his experience with John Kozak before he can use the skill again. Hyuk stares at the floating rating stars in disbelief. The man killed 3 people while he was asleep. From his point of view, that feels like a clear 1-star experience. He wants to leave a terrible rating for all the trouble caused, but then his conscience stops him. He remembers his mother working as a water purifier salesperson and how much low ratings affected her. Even in this situation, he cannot bring himself to be cruel, not even to a murderer. With a tired sigh, he settles on a polite 3-star rating. The moment he submits it, Kozak appears again, smiling brightly. He thanks Hyuk for the generous 3-star rating and promises to do even better the next time. He looks far too innocent for someone who just carried out a massacre. Hyuk does not waste time and immediately asks if he was the one who killed the men who came to the house the day before. Kozak confirms it without hesitation, cheerfully explaining that he took care of them just before his summon time ended. A wave of sickness rises in Hyuk as he realizes he is standing face to face with a killer. Even so, he forces himself to ask how Kozak managed to find their office. The assassin explains that he placed a tracking mark on them when they broke into the room, because he recognized them as a danger. When Hyuk argues that he never ordered anyone to be killed, Kozak calmly repeats the 3 rules of summoning. The first rule is to protect the summoner's life above everything else. Even though Hyuk ordered him to stay hidden, Kozak judged that removing the threat to Hyuk's safety mattered more than staying silent. Hyuk calls that way of thinking insane, and Kozak politely accepts the insult as though he has been praised. He even admits that he hears the same thing often. That answer sends Hyuk's thoughts into a nightmare. He starts imagining himself brushing shoulders with a rude stranger in public, only for Kozak to treat a small insult like a real threat and leave more ribbon-wrapped heads in the street. Desperate to put some kind of limit on this madness, Hyuk demands a promise. Unless a knife is literally pressed against his throat, Kozak is not allowed to kill anyone over suspicion alone. Kozak salutes like a loyal soldier and agrees to use his best judgment, which is such a vague answer that it gives Hyuk no comfort at all. Trying to move away from the subject, Kozak asks whether Hyuk has thought about climbing the tower. Just hearing that makes Hyuk's legs shake. He admits that while it could be a huge chance to change his life, he is simply too afraid and sees himself as a coward compared to the so-called heroes who throw themselves into danger. He expects disappointment, but instead Kozak's eyes brighten. He declares Hyuk the greatest kind of summoner because courage is poison to someone in that role. In Kozak's view, a brave summoner is only a dead summoner. He says he would rather serve a master who values survival so he can handle all the ugly work while Hyuk stays alive and well for a long time. That strange praise gives Hyuk a small bit of comfort. For once, his cowardly nature sounds less like a flaw and more like a survival skill. He sends Kozak away and tries to get some sleep. When he wakes, he decides to forget about the tower and just live quietly, especially now that the debt collectors have disappeared under very suspicious circumstances. But life does not leave him alone for long. He gets a call from his father, who reveals that he needs to be moved to a more expensive hospital. At the same time, Hyuk learns that his mother has just lost her job. The weight of money problems crashes down on him all over again, heavier than before. In that moment, Hyuk understands that he no longer has a choice. He prepares himself in a ridiculous outfit, covering his body in safety padding and putting on a helmet. He looks like someone about to ride a bicycle with training wheels. Even so, he decides to step into the tower, planning to check only the first floor and leave quickly. But there is one problem. He really does not want to enter with the red-haired psycho. He tries to use random summon again, hoping to get literally anyone else, maybe even a legendary rank. The system shuts him down instantly. A message appears, stating that the skill has a cooldown of 28 days. With no other option left, he summons Kozak again. This time, Kozak thanks him for the 5-star rating, making it clear that Hyuk has already learned the importance of keeping a murderer satisfied. Kozak is pleased that Hyuk has decided to enter the tower, but he immediately criticizes the safety gear. He tells Hyuk to throw away the clumsy armor, claiming he will act as the perfect guide. He promises that Hyuk will not need to do anything at all. Taking a deep breath, standing beside a very dangerous escort, Hyuk accepts the prompt and enters Korea's Black Tower, first floor. His grand entrance into the tower begins, and by grand entrance, he is doing everything he can not to throw up all over his assassin. The teleportation hits him hard, messing up his balance, and he ends up clinging to John Kozak like a helpless koala. They arrive on the first floor, which turns out to be a barren wasteland, far from anything that could be called comfortable. Kozak, calm as always, gently pats him and reassures him that the nausea will pass with time. As Hyuk slowly moves away from the safe zone, holding his chest, a system notification appears, almost as if trying to boost his confidence. It informs him that his physical abilities have been raised to a mature level just by entering the dungeon. The urge to vomit fades, replaced by a sudden wave of confidence that he did not earn. He clenches his fists, feeling stronger, faster, and strangely capable. For a brief moment, he actually believes he can fight. The system assigns his first mission: defeat 5 fat grubs with tough skin within 2 hours. The name sounds bad, and the reality is worse. The creatures are massive beetles, large and unpleasant to look at. Hyuk tries to remember what he knows about them and recalls that they are considered the basic training enemies of the tower. But basic does not mean easy. For a beginner, defeating even one of these creatures usually takes around 30 minutes of desperate effort. They are known for their thick shells that make weapons bounce off without doing much damage. Still carried by his temporary confidence boost, Hyuk decides that this will be the moment he proves himself. He asks Kozak for a weapon, determined to defeat at least one creature on his own. He walks up to the nearest giant insect, weapon raised, almost looking like a hero. Then the creature moves. It barely shifts, just a small twitch. That alone is enough to destroy all his courage. His confidence collapses instantly. He turns around and screams for Kozak to save him, abandoning any sense of pride in a single moment. Kozak does not criticize him. Instead, he calmly praises Hyuk for making the correct decision to retreat. The assassin moves in, but he does not simply pierce the insect. That would have been far too restrained. He activates a technique called Blade Explosion with C4. Yes, that is exactly what happened. He brings out military-level plastic explosives against a tutorial beetle. A huge blast erupts, dust spreads in every direction, and the insects are not merely beaten. They are erased. Hyuk can only stare in shock as the mission ends in a matter of seconds. The system loses all restraint, granting Hyuk an S++ conquest score and a gleaming platinum badge. Hyuk looks at the rewards and realizes that while others are struggling to survive, he has somehow run into a complete exploit. While Hyuk brushes the dust off himself, a global alert reaches every player across South Korea. It declares that the second floor of the Black Tower is now open. The scene shifts to other hunters, gyms, and bars, where people react in confusion and wonder who could have cleared the first floor that quickly. At the same time, Hyuk is already back at his apartment going through his loot. He examines the magic stone. He had just obtained it. It is a blue crystal essential to modern industry, and even with the market flooded, it is valued at 50,000 won. Hyuk runs the numbers. He had just made 50 grand in 5 minutes. That is more than he earns after days of carrying bricks. He studies the platinum badge, something he has never seen before, but chooses to put it aside for now because the money is the only thing that matters. To mark his sudden fortune, Hyuk orders food delivery. He picks pork trotters, but being a thoughtful master, he chooses the regular version instead of the spicy one. He remembers that the legendary mad assassin has a paper-thin tongue and cannot deal with heat. Kozak is clearly moved by that choice, but still inspects the food with suspicion, asking whether it is spicy. As they eat, Hyuk brings up something that had been bothering him. He asks whether Kozak's old-fashioned and overly stiff way of speaking is normal. Kozak admits that it is a habit he picked up from his former summoner. Hyuk laughs and points out that it makes him sound like someone still caught up over an ex-boyfriend. Kozak says he can change it if it becomes irritating, but Hyuk tells him to leave it because it is honestly pretty amusing. They laugh together over pork and killing, making their strange connection even firmer. Hayuk finally accepts that the tower is not some deadly trap. It is his own personal ATM. The following morning, Hayuk reorganizes his whole life. He decides to leave behind his body-breaking day labor jobs. His new routine is clear. He will work at the convenience store during the day, the restaurant in the evening, and then farm the tower with his assassin summon at night. He calls Kozak out again, and the assassin is nearly shining because Hayuk had given him another 5-star satisfaction score. Kozak explains how the system works. The higher the score, the stronger the buffs become. High satisfaction brings longer manifestation time and can even lead to rank advancement. In simple terms, the more Hayuk keeps his assassin satisfied, the stronger the assassin becomes. It is a perfect deal for both sides. They move on to the second floor. The mission there is to defeat 10 fat grubs known for their quick movement. These creatures are fast. Hayuk starts to worry, questioning whether they can even catch them. Kozak only grins and says he will wrap it up in 3 minutes so they can head back and eat fried chicken. Just as promised, Kozak wipes out the fast-moving bugs. Another S++ rating, another platinum badge, another stack of magic stones. Hayuk realizes the whole thing is ridiculously easy. They do not stop there. They charge into the 3rd floor to face ice grubs. Cleared. 4th floor, cleared. 5th floor, cleared. Hayuk is collecting platinum badges as if they were cheap reward prizes. He notices that he can clear a floor in the same time it takes to make a cup of coffee. After conquering the 5th floor, the system grants him a special reward for collecting 5 platinum badges. It is a trade enhancement. Hayuk reads the notice and his eyes widen. The number of summons he can control at the same time has increased to 2. The coward locks up on the spot. One unstable assassin had already been handling everything without trouble. But now he can bring out 2 of them. The tower is completely unprepared for that. Our boy stares at his status screen. He starts planning his next step like a bargain hunter during a massive sale. He realizes that because of his recent speedrun, he can now manage 2 summons at once. That means he could already have a full group around him. But then he checks the cooldown for his random summon skill and pauses. It is more than 20 days. He decides to think ahead. Instead of gambling on a bad summon now, he chooses to wait until the cooldown resets so he can move with 3 people at once, himself, Kozak, and a fresh meat shield to guarantee maximum safety. He tells himself that this is smart patience, but the truth is obvious. He just wants to do even less than he is already doing. Meanwhile, at the Awakened Management Agency, the government is in complete chaos. A group of deeply stressed officials is trying to figure out who is clearing the Black Tower with an S++ rating. Team Leader John and Section Chief M are sweating hard because Korea's previous best record was a miserable E rank. The director is panicking at the thought that another country might step in and steal this super rookie with better treatment or worse, abduct them. They order a nationwide search for the unknown player, completely unaware that the person they are hunting is currently sitting around in his underwear, eating instant noodles. Back inside the tower, Hayuk and Kozak are treating the 8th floor like a casual stroll. They go up against red-horned frog warriors, and before Hayuk can even react, Kozak has already turned them into sliced meat. Another floor falls, followed by another S++ rating and yet another platinum badge. Hyuk grumbles that the hardest part of his day is not the fights, but the dizziness from entering the tower. Kozak reminds him that things only become serious after the 10th floor. Feeling unusually generous, Hyuk decides to reward his loyal killer. He pulls out his wallet and tells Kozak to go outside, enjoy himself, and eat something good in the real world. Kozak rejects the idea immediately. He refuses to leave his summoner's side, holding on to absolute loyalty. Hyuk exhales and decides that if they cannot go out, then the celebration will come to them. They order chicken and Kozak becomes visibly excited, almost shaking with anticipation. While Kozak is focused on the food, Hyuk checks his inventory. He notices 5 tower-only healing potions and plans to hand them to Kozak later. But the real value lies in the stack of magic stones. He runs quick numbers in his head and realizes he is holding more than 3 kilograms of magic crystals. If he sells them, the total would pass 1 billion. In just 1 week, he goes from having nothing to becoming a billionaire, and he does it without putting in any real effort. By the 10th day, the routine is locked in. Hayuk works his cashier shift, then returns home to wipe out monsters. He gives Kozak another 5-star rating, which extends the assassin's active time by an extra hour. Kozak forms a heart shape with his arms to show appreciation. The gesture looks both harmless and disturbing coming from someone who makes a living cutting heads off. They step into the 10th floor, and Hayuk immediately senses a difference. Mana floods his body, and he describes the feeling as something wild and untamed. The rush gets to his head, and he decides he wants to take part in the fight this time. Kozak reacts with clear alarm, thinking that even a single scratch on Hyuk would force him to punish himself. Hayuk ignores the concern, driven by pride, since the enemy is only a large insect. The monster appears, and in a brief moment that looks like skill, or perhaps Kozak acting too fast to see, the creature is cut in half instantly. The system announces the 10th floor has been cleared and drops a large amount of rewards for Hayuk. Because he has gathered 10 platinum badges, the system grants him a special option. He can copy one skill from a summon. The choices include strong attack abilities like Blade Explosion and Poison Dagger. A normal person would go for damage. Hayuk chooses Shadow Step without hesitation. Kozak questions the decision, and Hayuk admits it is the best option for escaping. Kozak supports the choice, treating it as smart thinking since survival comes first. Hayuk then tries to use his new teleport skill inside his living room, jumping around like a restless animal, but nothing happens. He realizes too late that skills cannot be used outside the tower and ends up looking ridiculous, bouncing around his apartment like a fool. Once he is finally ready to turn his loot into cash, Hyuk contacts the Awakened Management Agency to sell his magic stones. To him, it is only a simple business deal, but to the agency, this is the clue they have been waiting for. Team Leader John and Section Chief M race to the address, hoping this is the person they have been searching for. They arrive at his small and modest apartment. Hayuk opens the door, uneasy because a very intense woman is glaring straight at him. Section Chief M does not bother with any courtesy. She steps directly into his space, fixes her eyes on him, and demands to know whether he is the S++ ranker. Section Chief Lindley Min crowds him so closely, it feels like she is trying to inspect every pore on his face, pressing him on whether he is the S++ ranker. Hyuk tries to stay calm and denies it all, but fear is eating him alive. He has no idea whether they possess some hidden awakening detection device that he knows nothing about. Thankfully, his acting is awful, but his natural, useless-looking presence is overwhelming. Lindley Min sees the frightened, miserable look on his face and quickly concludes that there is no chance this coward is some great hero. She steps back, and her superior, Team Leader John, apologizes for her behavior. Hayuk quietly lets out a breath, realizing that seeming incompetent is the perfect disguise. They head inside and sit at his tiny table for a short discussion. Team Leader John begins the confirmation process by asking for proof of his dungeon clears. Hayuk hands over the mana crystals he obtained from the 10th floor. The two agents exchange a glance. Clearing the 10th floor is no small thing, and it lines up with the pace of the mysterious top rookie they are trying to find. They casually ask whether he has heard the global announcements about the high-rank clear. Hayuk throws himself into the act and pretends to be stunned, praising the unknown player while sweat soaks through his shirt. Then Team Leader John explains the deal. Players are split into two categories, the elite group and the general group. The elite side receives a salary, government backing, and strong equipment. But in exchange, they are basically treated like state property and are forced to clear dangerous high-level floors. The general side is meant for freelancers who are free to live however they want. Hyuk does not need even a moment to think. He chooses the general route immediately. He tells them he is scared, not especially gifted, and only wants to farm safe floors for quick money. Section Chief Len Lee Min looks at him with open disgust. In her mind, plenty of people choose the safer path, but almost nobody admits so openly that they are this pathetic. She writes him off as a complete waste of time. Still, the team leader is careful. He asks Hayuk to enter the tower right there as one final step to confirm everything. Hayuk agrees, but he already understands what they are trying to do. They want to measure the time. If he clears the floor too fast, they will know he is the one. Hayuk decides to beat them by acting useless on purpose. He tells them to get comfortable because he plans to take a slow 2-hour walk inside. The moment he vanishes, the agents begin betting on how badly he will fail. Len Lee Min predicts that he will give up on the 11th floor since the mission involves centipedes, and someone as cowardly as him will obviously lose his nerve. Inside the tower, Hayuk gives instructions to his assassin. The mission is to kill 100 long-tail centipedes. Kozak, as eager as ever, offers to wipe them all out in 5 minutes. Hyuk immediately shuts that down. He orders Kozak to move slowly and keep things under control. He explains that they need a messy and unimpressive run to throw the government off track. Kozak gives a thumbs up, though he likely believes his master is carrying out some impossible master plan. They begin the stage, and Kozak follows orders, killing at a painfully slow pace. Then everything goes wrong. A giant centipede bursts out of the ground directly beneath Hyuk. Our brave hero locks up, with his legs refusing to move. Kozak sees his summoner in danger, and his absolute loyalty to safety takes over. He declares that he cannot follow the slow approach while Hyuk's life is under threat. In a single blur of movement, he wipes out every centipede nearby in an instant. Then comes the system message of disaster. 11th floor cleared. Rank S++++. Hyuk stares at the notice, realizing that his plan to appear average has failed in the worst possible way. Hyuk returns to his living room exactly 5 minutes after leaving. The agents are staring down at their phones, which have just received the global notice of the clear. They look at Hyuk. Hyuk looks back at them. The timing says everything. There is no way out of this one. The moment he understands that his cover is gone, Hyuk's attitude changes. He summons Kozak, who appears behind him with a threatening presence. Hyuk looks at the two shaken government agents and says that he truly did not want to come to this, but now they have to be silenced. It seems our coward is about to step into his villain phase. The scene resumes with the coward Banju Hyuk, trapped inside a terrifying fantasy of his own making. He watches in horror as his assassin, John Kozak, takes the earlier order to silence them far too seriously and kills the government agents right there in the living room. Hyuk is on the verge of screaming, but then reality returns. The agents are completely unharmed, still breathing, and very much alive. It had only been Hyuk's wild, paranoid imagination spiraling out of control. The only thing truly dying in that room is Hyuk's pride. Sweat pours off him, and Section Chief Lin Lehman asks whether he is all right, assuming he is going through some kind of panic episode. Team Leader John blames the sweating on a persecution complex, which is really just a cleaner way of calling him a complete nervous wreck. Hyuk quickly says he is fine, just to keep things moving. Team Leader John wastes no time and gets to the point. He knows Hyuk is the one who cleared the 11th floor at record speed because the timing was far too exact to be random. Hyuk tries to deny it, saying something absurd about excellence being contagious or some other nonsense just as ridiculous. But the strained laugh he forces out is so awkward that it convinces absolutely no one. Now that the act has fallen apart, the team leader pushes a contract across the table. But this is no ordinary deal. It is the highest elite contract. It comes with an annual salary of 12 billion won, provided housing, VVIP treatment, full security protection, and legal immunity. It is basically permission to live like royalty, and any sensible person would have signed it without hesitation. But Hyuk looks at it and refuses. The reason is simple. He hates attention. He still remembers the stress of a clothing shop owner asking what kind of style he liked, and how he nearly ran away because even that felt like too much social pressure. He is the worst kind of avoidant. He tells them he only wants a normal contract because the elite route means clearing dangerous upper floors, and he has no intention of carrying that kind of burden. He just wants a comfortable life, not a heroic one. Back at the Awakened Management Agency, the director is completely lost. He cannot understand how some low-profile nobody with no ambition could be an S++ ranker. Lindley Min confirms that the timing leaves no room for doubt. The director decides that he does not care whether Hyuk is strange. Talent is still talent. He orders them to drag Hyuk into the elite team by any means, setting up even more trouble for later. Back in the safety of his apartment, Hyuk is furious. He scolds Kozak for moving too quickly earlier, which is exactly what exposed them. Kozak apologizes, but Hyuk decides he has to be strict. He yells that if Kozak ignores orders again, there will be nothing waiting for him. No television, no snacks, only misery. They head into the 12th floor to hunt ice weasels. Hyuk gives an extremely clear order to move slowly. He wants to fail the time limit or at least seem average, so the government will lose interest. Kozak agrees, but then he notices something awful. It is cold. He sees Hyuk shivering and immediately decides that a cold is a deadly illness that threatens his summoner's life. All reason disappears. To get Hyuk back to a warm room as fast as possible, Kozak destroys the weasels instantly. The result is another S++ rank and another platinum badge. Hyuk's plan to look unimpressive is collapsing in the worst way possible. Team leader John calls right away, suspicious of how fast the 12th floor was cleared. Hyuk hangs up and turns all his anger toward Kozak. He points at the television and tells the assassin that he is banned from watching his soap operas. He makes it clear that those who do not follow orders deserve nothing, but the cycle of pain keeps going on the 13th floor. They run into a corridor full of traps. Hyuk worries about all the possible things that could go wrong, but Kozak decides the traps are too dangerous and instantly destroys the whole mechanism to keep him safe. S++ rank achieved. On the 14th floor, they face giant eyeball machines. Kozak decides the sound attacks are too dangerous for Hyuk's fragile ears and wipes them out before they can even make noise. S++ rank achieved. Hyuk gives up. He realizes that whatever is going to happen will happen. Hyuk sits down and starts checking the numbers, then realizes that his failure to look average has one clear benefit. He has earned nearly 8 million won in just 14 days from cash rewards alone. But the true shock is the magic stones. He now has 5 kilograms of them. If he sells everything, he is basically making 1 million won a day. He realizes that a life with a monthly income of 30 million won is now within reach. The very next day, he quits his part-time job immediately. Hyuk summons Kozak and finds the assassin kneeling with his head lowered, grateful that Hyuk still gave him a 5-star rating even after all the disobedience. Hyuk decides to stop resisting what is clearly unavoidable. He tells Kozak that there is no reason to keep holding back since the management office already knows enough, so they may as well speedrun everything. They enter the 15th floor to kill 20 goblin workers. Hyuk is worried because goblins are smart and could run off to call for help. He tells Kozak to stay sharp. Kozak tells him to remain where he is and uses a skill called Step. He moves with such speed and silence that the goblins are killed before they even realize they are dead. Mission cleared. Another S++ rank. Another pile of rewards, including a tower-only healing potion and an owner emblem. Back in his room, Hyuk checks his inventory. He has now collected a total of 15 platinum badges. The system recognizes the milestone and offers him a new reward. He remembers what came before. At 5 badges, he got a second summon slot. At 10 badges, he gained the chance to copy a skill. He stares at the new message, wondering what kind of broken ability he is about to receive this time. Hopefully, it is something that lets him do even less. So the professional coward has now gathered 15 platinum badges, and the system decides it is time to hand him another reward. It gives him the energy shield kit. The name sounds impressive, but in reality, it is just a bracelet that absorbs damage like a magic sponge until it finally breaks. But here is the real point. The description does not say tower exclusive. Hyuk's eyes practically turn into money signs because if this item works in the real world, he is looking at a payout of 2 to 3 billion won. He immediately starts calculating, wondering whether he should sell it and retire or keep it and actually stay alive. He turns to his personal expert in murder and asks whether they can clear the 16th floor right away. Kozak, still acting like his loyal promoter, says the clear is certain, but he cannot guarantee an S rank if they rush it. That answer is enough for Hyuk. He decides that risking his life for a lower grade is not worth it, so he settles on selling the bracelet and living in comfort. Meanwhile, back at the Awakened Management Agency, the atmosphere is heavy. It has been 15 days since the mysterious super rookie last cleared a floor, and the director is starting to lose control. He becomes convinced that the player either gave up or died, grieving the waste of such talent like fate itself had lost its mind. Team leader John tries to calm him down, checks the logs, and suddenly announces that the player is coming in to use the player shop. The director goes into immediate panic. He realizes their precious VIP is still walking around in beginner clothes and probably owns no proper gear. He orders the entire shop locked down. He wants the shelves filled with top-level items, but he also demands that everything be marked down by 90%. He figures that if they hand things over for free, Hyuk's suspicious nature will reject it. So a huge sale becomes the perfect trick to pull him in. Back at the apartment, Hyuk decides that he needs to confirm the item is real before selling it. He hands a dagger to Kozak and asks the assassin to stab him. It is treated like some normal, everyday request. Kozak looks at him as if he had just suggested something unforgivable. He starts trembling, unable to accept the thought of harming even a single strand of his master's hair. Hyuk rolls his eyes at the reaction. He lets out a tired breath, grabs the dagger himself, and moves to stab his own arm. But before the blade can touch him, Kozak's hand shoots forward and catches the weapon with his bare hand. Blood falls onto the floor as the assassin shakes, terrified that his master had almost been injured. Hyuk quickly heals him, realizing that testing protective gear with an overprotective madman was a terrible plan, and then Hyuk decides to test his shadow step instead. He teleports onto a goblin's back and feels like a ninja for a moment. The goblin shrieks and tries to bite him, but then the shield activates with perfect timing. It works exactly as intended. Hyuk, feeling untouchable for all of 2 seconds, kicks the goblin in the face while Kozak drops in to finish it off, but instead of approval, Kozak starts shouting. He demands to know whether Hyuk is hurt, scolding him as if courage itself were a health risk. Hyuk apologizes again and again, promising that he will return to doing absolutely nothing. With a bag full of mana stones worth millions, Hyuk finally contacts the agency. He expects an ordinary business exchange, but the government sends an actual limousine to pick him up. He arrives at the player shop and is welcomed by team leader John, who treats him like a top-level VIP. Hyuk steps inside and immediately feels confused. The place is completely empty of other customers because, without his knowledge, everyone else had been forced out. He checks the price tags and finds high-end gear being sold for almost nothing. He assumes the market must have collapsed or that he is simply an incredible bargain hunter, completely failing to notice that the government is covering the cost of his new outfit. He picks up a pair of leather boots that would normally cost a fortune, but are listed for the price of a cheap meal. He buys them along with several other items, convinced he is getting away with the greatest steal of his life. From his office, the director watches the whole thing and nearly cries with relief that their fragile powerhouse is finally wearing proper protection. The next day, Hyuk is feeling good. He has new boots, a working shield, and his confidence has recovered. He summons Kozak, who immediately salutes and gets ready for another round of goblin slaughter. But Hyuk stops him. He points upward and announces that today is not just about farming floors. They are going to grow the team. He already has the second summon slot, and he feels lucky. He activates the random summon skill, hoping for a tank or a healer. A massive magic circle spreads across the room, and it is truly massive. A figure begins to appear, but there is one immediate problem. The summon is enormous. As the giant fully takes shape, his head crashes straight through the apartment ceiling, sending chunks of debris everywhere. Hyuk stares at the hole in the roof, and his first concern is not the powerful ally he just summoned. It is the security deposit. The giant standing in the middle of the broken ceiling and falling plaster looks completely confused. While Hyuk is grieving over the damage to his apartment, and Kozak has already decided that violence is the only solution. The red-haired assassin takes one look at the newcomer and instantly sees him as a threat to his exclusive hold over Hyuk's attention. He yells at the giant to sit down, calls him a moving nuisance, and attacks without hesitation. Hyuk watches in horror, not because of the blood, but because he absolutely cannot afford more damage to the property. Kozak keeps slashing and raging, sounding like a jealous ex who just ruined a wedding, but the giant remains still, completely unaffected. He looks down at the assassin who is doing everything possible to kill him, and calmly says that it only tickles. One of Kozak's eyes twitches. He threatens to cut the giant's throat and decorate it, proving that his strange obsession with wrapping things is still alive and well. Hyuk finally steps in and orders both of them to stop before the entire building collapses. Kozak freezes immediately because an order from his master cannot be ignored, but rage is still pouring off him. Hyuk asks for a report on the new summon. Kozak spits on the floor and says there is no reason to learn the man's name because he is nothing more than a meat shield. He explains that this man is known in the underworld as a complete fool who probably does not even understand the 3 laws of summoning. To prove it, Kozak tests the giant on Article 1. The giant blinks, clearly taking far too long to process the question, and admits that he does not know. He forgot. Kozak turns to Hyuk with a smug expression that says he had been right all along, suggesting they kill the giant now and roll the gacha again in 100 days. Hyuk ignores the suggestion of murder and checks the system window. The new summon is rare rank, the lowest tier possible, with the class Savage Warrior. His name field is still empty, and his satisfaction score does not exist yet. Then, the familiar headache hits, and Hyuk is pulled into the giant's memories. He sees a wide and beautiful plain where the giant is running around with butterflies. It feels almost harmless and bright until it becomes clear that the giant is also casually snapping the necks of wolves while playing. The memory reveals the tragedy behind this massive figure. He had been simple and pure, someone who found joy in nature, but he was also unbelievably stupid. A group of so-called heroes tricked him into joining their party, used him as the frontline shield against a hydra, and left him to be melted by acid breath while they stayed safely behind him. He died protecting people who had been mocking him the entire time. Hyuk returns to reality and looks at the giant differently. He knows the whole thing is messed up, but he also realizes that someone loyal to the point of stupidity and able to endure pain is exactly the kind of person a coward like him needs. He decides to give the giant a name. He asks whether he prefers Yaman or Gobang. The giant, staying true to himself, says that he does not know, so Hyuk chooses Gobang. He smiles and promises to make Gobang happy, which sounds kind on the surface until it is remembered that Hyuk's idea of happiness is surviving while others do all the work. He introduces Gobang to Kozak and declares that the three of them are now comrades. Kozak looks like he has just swallowed something sour. He politely accepts the word comrade while silently measuring how quickly he could take Gobang apart. With the group now complete, they head straight for the 16th floor. The mission is to eliminate 30 goblins. Kozak, still acting like the most dramatic person alive, insists on taking the front to shield Hyuk from poison darts. They move through the forest in formation, with Kozak in front, Hyuk safely in the center, and Gobang covering the back. Without warning, a goblin fires a poisoned dart. Kozak catches it in mid-air with effortless precision, then immediately turns to check on Hyuk with extreme concern. Hyuk points out that there are around 50 goblins hiding in the trees. Kozak prepares for a careful fight, but Hyuk has a different plan. He tells Gobang to move to the front and block them. Gobang does not think through the situation. He does not circle around. He simply jumps. The giant launches himself into the air and crashes down with the force of a small disaster. The shockwave alone throws Kozak off balance. Arrows pour down onto Gobang, but they simply bounce off his skin like worthless toys. He laughs and says it tickles, then starts crushing the goblins into a bloody mess. Hyuk watches from behind a rock with wide eyes. He realizes that even though Gobang is only ranked rare, his raw physical power easily reaches SSR level. The system clearly pushed his rank down only because his intelligence barely exists. After the slaughter, they celebrate back at the apartment with fried chicken. Gobang is thrilled. He stuffs an entire piece of chicken into his mouth, bones included, and chews it all down. He looks at Hyuk with pure happiness and comments only on the crunch. Kozak watches the whole thing with complete disgust. He asks whether the chicken is spicy, but most of all, he is deeply offended by Gobang's manners at the table. Hyuk tries to build some sense of teamwork, telling Kozak that Gobang is family now. Kozak immediately pushes back, questioning why he has to share that title with a bone-eating vacuum. The following day, they head to the 17th floor. Hyuk, feeling the effects of leveling up, starts getting a little too confident. He tightens his fist, feels mana rising through him, and wonders whether that wild force inside him is finally waking up. For a brief moment, he thinks that maybe he should join the fight this time. Kozak crushes that idea immediately. He tells Hyuk to stay in the back because confidence usually ends with death. They come across a full battalion of goblin warriors. These are not the weak, half-naked goblins from before. These ones have shields, armor, and organized formation. A normal player would have to pull them out one by one. Hyuk looks at the army. He looks at his fist full of false confidence. Then he looks at his giant, unstoppable tank. He decides that strategy is for people who do not have something like Gobang. He orders the giant to wipe them all out. As Gobang charges forward, Hyuk starts wondering what kind of broken power he is going to receive next, because at this rate, he is going to conquer the tower without even getting tired. Gobang crashes into the goblin battalion like a runaway train. He bats them away like insects, and Hyuk watches from a safe distance, completely absorbed by the sight. He realizes that strategy and tactics are nice ideas for weak people, but when someone has a living tank, it is like bringing a bomb to a knife fight. Hyuk compares the goblins to people on bicycles trying to stop a war machine. It is not a battle. It is a massacre. Thanks to the giant fool's rampage, Hyuk clears the 17th floor with another S++ rank and collects yet another platinum badge. He is drowning in rewards, and his ego is beginning to grow even faster than his money. They move straight to the 18th floor. The mission is simple. Eliminate 30 goblin assassins. Hyuk shouts for them to move out with the confidence of a commander who never has to do any of the actual fighting. Gobang charges forward, ready to crush everything in sight. But there is one problem. The enemies are invisible. The giant swings his club through empty space, confused because there is nothing he can see to hit. He stands there looking like a dog barking at something it cannot understand, grumbling that the enemies are cowards for hiding. Kozak, who has been brooding in the background because he has not killed anything in 5 whole minutes, sees his chance. He steps forward and declares that he is about to cleanse Hyuk's eyes after forcing him to watch Gobang's pathetic struggle. He mocks the goblins, claiming their stealth is nothing compared to his own abilities. With full dramatic force, the red-haired assassin activates Shadow Step. He vanishes into motion and tears through the invisible goblins with perfect precision. It becomes a complete slaughter. Hyuk watches and instantly understands what is happening. Kozak had taken the bait. The assassin had clearly been getting restless because the new summon was stealing all the attention, so his competitive side finally exploded. Hyuk grins, realizing that Kozak's jealousy can be used to collect badges even faster. He silently praises himself for being some kind of manipulative genius. Then the stupid thoughts take over. Hyuk is already level 18. He can feel the mana running through his body, and suddenly, his inflated ego takes shape in his mind. He imagines a grand, muscular, wild stallion running freely through a field of flowers. Yes, the fool literally pictures his inner self as a horse charging across the world. It looks majestic, it feels powerful, and it is completely disconnected from reality. Then he spots a single goblin that had slipped through the chaos. The horse in his head practically screams. Hyuk decides to step in. He sneaks forward and swings his mace with more force than expected. The hit lands perfectly and crushes the goblin's skull in a single blow. Hyuk stands over the body, feeling like a war god. He is probably already writing a victory speech in his head, but because he is too busy admiring himself, he fails to notice another goblin creeping up directly behind him. The assassin lifts a dagger, ready to skewer Hyuk on the spot. Hyuk turns around just in time to watch his death coming at him. But before the blade can touch him, Kozak appears from nowhere. He knocks the attack away with a face full of pure irritation, and then he kicks the goblin so hard it may as well have flown into another world. He throws Hyuk a look that clearly says he turned away for 2 seconds and nearly lost his entire purpose. But the fight is still not finished. Goblins are rushing in from every direction. Gobang is crushing the left side and Kozak is locking down the right. Hyuk stands in the center with adrenaline flooding through him. The wild stallion returns, and this time it is not only in his head. Hyuk sees 2 goblins charging straight at him. Instead of panicking and calling for help, he activates Shadow Step. He disappears from sight. In the next instant, he appears behind the goblins with his mace already in motion. He lands 2 deadly strikes before they even understand what happened, dropping both of them on the spot. Kozak, who was just about to rush over and protect him again, stops where he is. He watches his coward of a master pull off a flawless double kill with Shadow Step. The assassin's eyes widen. It had taken him months to master that movement, and Hyuk had just used it as if it were natural. Our boy is actually talented. Later, outside the tower, the media is in chaos. News anchors report that a new force is rising through the tower. A mysterious rookie has cleared 18 floors in 20 days with a perfect S+ record. They call it unprecedented, something that is changing history itself. Everyone wants to know who this top-level player really is. Back inside the tower, Kozak hears about the reports. But he is not pleased. His face turns serious. He makes Hyuk sit down for an important talk. He tells Hyuk that his growth is happening far too fast. Hyuk takes it as praise, but Kozak shakes his head. He explains that Hyuk's Shadow Step had been perfect, so perfect that it was disturbing. Kozak looks like he is on the edge of breaking down. Then he lays out the problem. When a coward gains strength, confidence follows. And when confidence appears, that coward starts imagining he can become a hero. Heroes die. He begs his master to remember the promise that safety comes first. He does not want a warrior as a master. He wants a coward who stays alive. Hyuk nods and promises that he will never do anything reckless again. But Kozak grabs at his chest, muttering that something feels wrong. He looks at Hyuk and sees a walking disaster waiting to happen, fully convinced that this sudden rise in talent is going to kill them both. Back at the apartment, there is no peace at all. Kozak is yelling that he is going to boil Gobang alive in a pot, while the giant tank casually falls backward and crushes the refrigerator. Hyuk screams, not because of his summons, but because of his appliances. He shouts at them to stop destroying the house, but the damage is already done. The fridge door is bent, and even worse, a precious jar of kimchi has shattered across the floor. Needing to calm his mind, our boy decides to visit the only people who do not want to kill him or destroy his furniture: his parents. He arrives at the family home. His mother welcomes him warmly, but the mood inside is heavy. His father is lying in bed, barely able to move properly because of his injured hip. Hyuk asks about his condition, and his father tries to act strong, complaining that bones heal easily and that he simply enjoys lying down. It is an obvious lie, but Hyuk goes along with it and helps his father sit up for dinner. They gather around a pot of stew, and the strain of money problems hangs over the table. His mother tries to stay positive, saying she will find work again soon, but Hyuk can see the tiredness on her face. He decides to test their reaction. He casually asks what they would think if he had awakened as a player. The response is immediate. His father blows up. He asks whether that was supposed to be a joke, warning Hyuk that the tower is not some place for games. He says that he may be the kind of man who makes his wife deal with cockroaches, but he would still rather stay poor forever than watch his son die in a dungeon. Even Hyuk's younger brother, Mahak, who has just come in carrying tofu, calls it the funniest thing Hyuk has ever said. Hyuk quickly retreats from the topic, but his mother catches him off guard. She asks whether he is supposed to be working that day. Hyuk lies and says it is his day off, but his mother gives him that knowing look. She tells him that his face always shows when he is lying. Even so, she chooses to trust him, as long as he stays away from reckless risks. Hyuk feels a stab of guilt, but then he remembers something important. He asks why his mother lost her last job. She explains that she had gone to repair a water purifier for a rude customer. The customer then demanded that she also clean up their recycling and food waste. So what did she do? She realized the customer was going to leave a bad rating no matter what, so she dumped the food waste right back on them and let them deal with it. Hyuk realizes that his mother is bold, aggressive, and fearless, and that leads him to a harsh truth about his bloodline. His father's greatest accomplishment in life had been asking this terrifying woman out on a date. The narration makes it clear that the father is the pure definition of a weak man, the kind who falls completely for strong women. And unfortunately, Hyuk and his younger brother inherited those exact traits. They are pitiful, yet naturally pulled toward danger. Before leaving, Hyuk hands some spending money to his brother and tells him to pass it to their parents. The younger one looks at the cash, then at Hyuk with a sly grin. He asks where his own cut is. Hyuk immediately realizes the little brat is extorting him, so he transfers 500,000 won just to keep him quiet. With family matters handled, Hyuk heads to the Awakened Management Department. He decides it is finally time to visit the player shop properly. The moment he steps inside, stress hits him. There is a female employee there, and too many people are nearby. His social anxiety starts rising fast. The employee shows him a shield worth 100,000 won. Hyuk nearly dies on the spot and thinks the price is far beyond what he can handle. He asks for something cheaper. She then shows him a proud handshell priced at 40,000 won. Hyuk thinks it fits him perfectly, mostly because it is cheaper, and because he wants to escape that interaction as quickly as possible. He buys it and runs, thinking that talking to store employees is harder than fighting goblins. On his way out, a man approaches him. The man introduces himself as Joey Hosak, a player who has already climbed through the 30th floors. He is handsome, friendly, and carries himself like someone who belongs there. He offers help in case Hyuk ever runs into trouble. Hyuk watches him leave and feels a stab of jealousy. He admires the man's social confidence and assumes someone like that probably even has a girlfriend. Back at the apartment, Hyuk checks his stats. He is level 19. He summons Kozak to show off the new gear. Kozak reacts with complete disbelief. He questions whether Hyuk really needs a shield when he already has a bodyguard. Hyuk insists that survival always comes first. He makes Kozak promise that if things go wrong, he must throw the meat shield, meaning go bang, into danger so Hyuk can escape safely. Kozak agrees without hesitation, saying he would gladly sacrifice that bastard before sacrificing himself. Then he suddenly catches a scent. Dumplings. Hyuk had brought food as a bribe, but in the middle of chewing, Kozak suddenly stops. He asks whether Hyuk has made an enemy of someone. Hyuk is confused, but Kozak says that an overwhelming killing intent is coming from outside the door. Suddenly, the door is kicked open, breaking the lock. A man steps inside holding a pistol. He smirks as he recognizes Hyuk from the player shop. He calls Hyuk a loser and complains about how difficult it was to track him down. He raises the gun to Hyuk's head, demanding the bracelet and ordering him to open his inventory before pulling the trigger. Hyuk looks at the weapon, but there is no fear in him. He looks at the man with quiet pity. In his mind, this person is already as good as dead, because while the attacker is focused on threatening the weak target, he completely fails to notice the red-haired assassin moving through the shadows behind him. A brief pause settles in. The armed intruder is currently lost in the most delusional moment of his life. He believes Hyuk has frozen in fear, confident that the so-called coward will hand everything over without resistance. He continues his threats, but before he can finish, the red-haired killer moves. In an instant, the man is slammed to the ground, his entire momentum erased before he even understands what happened. The attacker lies there, confused, unable to grasp where the second person came from. Hyuk lets out a breath and feels a rare sense of relief. For once, his assassin understood the situation and chose to knock the target out instead of turning the room into a mess. The assassin questions whether Hyuk truly thought he would act carelessly, but the focus quickly shifts. They realize they have captured an item broker. These are the kind of people who hunt players outside the tower, because once they return to the real world, they are nothing more than normal civilians. Hyuk understands immediately that without his personal bodyguard, he would have ended up dead and robbed. The assassin begins planning how to dispose of the body somewhere far away, but Hyuk shuts that down instantly. He insists on handling it the easiest and most legal way by reporting it to the police. Meanwhile, at the management office, the director is still in despair, unable to accept that Hyuk only bought a mace and a shield instead of allowing them to equip him with top-level gear. They have already classified him as a melee-type player, but even with defensive items, they are worried about whether he can survive. Then suddenly, the already stressed director receives an urgent call about the break-in and explodes into full administrative fury. He runs through the building in a panic, terrified that if anything happens to their star rookie, he should have forced him to sign the elite contract from the very beginning. By the time the government official arrives, the police are already dragging the gunman away. The criminal is desperately trying to act like the victim, shouting that he was actually the one who had been kidnapped, but Hyuk has no patience for that nonsense. He's more worried that he might get dragged to the station too, afraid that his whole loser act is somehow about to end with him in jail. But then the overworked director steps in like some kind of guardian figure, or at least like a furious manager with no patience left. The robber recognizes him and immediately begs for help. The director answers with a clean punch straight to the face. He cancels the man's player registration on the spot, refusing to hear a single excuse from a level 34 criminal. He orders the police to take him away, knowing that once the higher authorities get their hands on a repeat offender like this, no shady liar in the city will come near him again. Once the garbage has been removed, the director turns back to Hyuk with an expression honestly more frightening than the gunman's. He apologizes over and over for the failure in security and swears to protect him, even if that means pushing more contracts on him later. With the situation finally settled, the red-haired assassin appears again, asking whether anyone else needs to be executed today. Hyuk has to firmly tell him to stop searching for people to punish and to put away the daggers. It is time to return to farming floors. So they head to the 19th floor to deal with 30 goblin shamans. These enemies are dangerous because they can keep firing off curses and flaming arrows, but their giant meat shield comes up with a very simple answer. He just yells. He releases a sonic roar so loud that it literally blows the magic curses away, proving once again that being a brute is a perfectly valid strategy. The red-haired assassin sees this and immediately gets competitive, telling the giant that they need to clear the floor as fast as possible so their master does not have to lift a finger. They throw themselves into a killing spree so efficient that Hyuk does not even get the chance to swing his mace before the mission clear message appears. He is left wondering whether they finish that fast just to keep him out of the fight, but he cannot complain when it ends with another high rank and another platinum badge. At last, they reach the 20th floor, the dreaded Talon Evaluator. This place is a complete nightmare made of scouts with poison needles, tactical warriors, and massive hobgoblins. The red-haired assassin tries once again to put their master on the sidelines, telling him to stay somewhere safe while the summons handle the mission and the 100 goblin kill count. They begin setting up a plan, with the giant meat shield meant to draw all the attention while the assassin moves in to finish the targets. But Hyuk is tired of standing around like a spectator. He decides that this time he will not sit back and watch, activating Shadow Step and throwing himself straight into the middle of the chaos. He jumps right past the giant tank and rushes forward, leaving both summons completely stunned that their cowardly master has finally chosen direct violence. Our shut-in hero then drifts through a very miserable path of memory, reminding everyone that he has been a full-time human doormat since childhood. His past is not the kind that builds legends. He had been such a harmless child that other kids probably felt like stealing his toy car was doing society a favor. By middle school, he had already become a ghost in the cafeteria, perfecting the skill of eating alone while blending into the background like part of the wall. He had been so afraid of dealing with people that he could not even look school bullies in the eye. But somehow, spending a lifetime as part of the loser class turns out to be excellent training for climbing the tower. He figures that monsters are easier to deal with because they do not have messy social games or feelings to wound. To him, they are easier than a group of cruel teenagers. In his mind, this is nothing more than a deadly video game mission, except the risk of dying is real, and there is no second chance. Back in the chaos of the 20th floor, the professional coward finally stops acting like a glorified supporter and activates Shadow Step. He is moving so quickly that even the red-haired psycho who serves him is impressed, watching him race across the battlefield like some overcharged ninja. For one brief, shining moment, he actually looks like someone who knows what he is doing, dropping several goblins with surprising speed and efficiency. But the success does not last long, because the little green pests start piling onto his back like a pack of filthy, frantic children. He loses every bit of that cool image immediately, curling behind his shield and praying that his expensive gear handles the problem for him. Thankfully, the energy barrier activates at the perfect moment and keeps him from being turned into a pincushion by the goblin swarm. He realizes almost instantly that he may have become a little too confident for someone whose main talent in life is running from trouble. The moment they see their master getting overwhelmed, the summons finally step in and start doing their job. The red-haired assassin is deeply offended that those filthy creatures dared to touch his master, calling them worthless trash before carving through them like a blade tearing through soft meat. Unwilling to be outshined, the giant meat shield throws himself into the fight and turns the area into total chaos. In the next instant, the system announces that all 100 goblins and the hobgoblin boss have been completely destroyed. The assassin turns toward Hayuk with bright eyes, praising his bold move, while the giant offers an excited, silent thumbs up. Hayuk stands there in awkward silence, realizing that even if he started the battle, his summons were the ones who truly ended it. Even though he barely did anything, the system still rewards him with another triple S rank and another platinum badge. Meanwhile, back at the management office, the director is busy acting like the most well-funded stalker alive. He digs through Hyuk's family situation and uncovers a frightening truth. The true head of the household is not the father or the sons, but the mother. Apparently, this woman is so overwhelming that the men in the house cannot even breathe too loudly when she is nearby. After realizing he has found the perfect pressure point, the director decides to move forward with a plan to aggressively support the mother. He figures that if the government showers the matriarch with enough favor and authority, Hayuk will end up tied to them by pure gratitude. It is an effective plan, even if it is also a little disturbing. Back in the real world, Hayuk decides to celebrate surviving with a flood of carbs. He orders 12 huge bowls of black bean noodles, which causes the delivery man to look at him with deep sympathy. The man clearly assumes Hyuk is hosting a miserable one-person feast. To make it worse, the delivery worker tosses in one single fried dumpling as a free extra. Hyuk is visibly offended. He just spent a ridiculous amount on noodles, and all he gets is one tiny dumpling and no coupons at all. He starts complaining in his head about how hard it has become to order with coupons these days, proving that even with millions in hand, he is still cheap to the core. He quickly sends the delivery man away and tells his housemates they can come out now. The second the door closes, the apartment turns into madness. The giant meat shield is practically shaking, making the floor tremble from pure excitement over the smell of the sauce. The assassin is just as captivated, staring at the takeout as though it were some sacred object. Hayuk watches the barbarian devour the food and honestly starts worrying that the giant is going to eat the ceramic plate along with the noodles. Ignoring the greed around him, Hyuk decides to check his rewards. He opens his inventory and sees that he has now collected 20 platinum badges, which unlocks a special prize. A platinum random box appears, and Hyuk stares at it, wondering whether his luck is finally about to improve or whether the system is about to throw another strange surprise at him. The professional coward stares at the floating platinum box with the desperate focus of a gambler locked onto a slot machine. The system slowly scrolls through the list of possible rewards, and the choices are enough to make any grown man tear up with happiness. There are mana stones, rare herbs, 50 different kinds of metal, potions, elixirs, and weapons. There are even special items like the Rune of Level Up, which allows someone to gain levels without climbing, and tower jump tickets, which let a player skip entire floors. Hayuk studies the list immediately like someone hunting for the best possible deal. He decides that the tower jump ticket is garbage because skipping a floor also means losing all the rewards from clearing it. And there is no point in being high level if it leaves him poor. His eyes lock onto the true prize on the list, the grade confirmation summon ticket. He realizes that if he pulls an SS rank summon, basically a god-level being, he could officially retire from fighting forever. He starts imagining a life where he sits back in a chair drinking juice while some overpowered servant handles everything for him. The thought of that level of perfect laziness nearly makes him drool. He prays for a miracle and opens the box. The results are a chaotic mix. First, he gets 10 kilograms of mana stones. Hyuk's eyes practically become money signs as he realizes that this alone is worth around 5 million won in shiny rocks he can sell whenever he wants. Second, he receives a skill book with the absurd name Cow's Lightning Staff. He thinks it sounds like something pulled from a terrible romance novel, but he registers it anyway because he is desperate to get a proper attack skill. But the third item is the true prize, a rune of summon grade up. This is a complete jackpot that can raise a summon's rank depending on their potential. He immediately runs into a problem that feels weirdly personal. Should he give it to the red-haired assassin or the giant meat shield? He reasons that the assassin probably deserves it more, since they have shared so many meals together, even if the giant had clearly eaten more of the food. In the end, he decides to keep it for later since their current power is already more than enough. He then decides to test his new Cow's Lightning Staff skill right there in his room. He tries to activate the first form, Lightning Soil Chaser, expecting something dramatic and impressive. But nothing happens at all because, of course, magic does not function in the real world. So he just ends up standing there looking ridiculous, while the red-haired assassin asks why he is swinging a mace around inside the apartment. When Hyuk proudly reveals that he learned an attack skill, the assassin looks horrified, like he has just seen a toddler pick up a chainsaw. Then the serious mood breaks apart completely, because the giant meat shield decides to steal fruit from the assassin, starting another childish fight where the assassin calls him a bastard. Once the oversized children finally calm down, the assassin gives Hyuk a lecture. He explains that a summoner's role is to stay back and let the servants handle the fighting, pointing out that his former master died for the exact reason that he tried to act like a hero. But Hyuk is too caught up in his own rising confidence. He insists that he is stronger now and needs to test his new skill. The assassin looks at him like he is watching disaster unfold in slow motion. He warns that for someone weak, an attack skill is just a prettier way to die. When Hyuk tries to argue that the 20th floor had been easy, the assassin loses patience. He activates one of the summoning principles, and suddenly the giant meat shield grabs Hyuk in a crushing bear hug, basically taking him hostage for his own protection. The assassin punches the giant for being too rough, but still agrees with the idea. Once they enter the tower, the giant will carry their master like luggage, while the assassin wipes out the floor. Hyuk realizes he has completely lost control of his own summons, so he brings out his final weapon, pitiful pleading. He begs them, throwing away what little pride he has left, just to let him kill a single monster carefully. The assassin lets out a tired sigh, defeated by how pathetic the scene has become, and agrees to let him kill one slow and isolated monster. But if things become dangerous, the deal ends immediately. They head to the 21st floor, the territory of the orcs. The assassin warns that orcs are actually smarter than the giant tank, which the giant instantly rejects. Before the mission begins, the assassin suggests a humiliating training method. He wants Hyuk to practice by hitting the giant 10 times. The giant happily agrees to be used as a target, promising that it will not hurt at all. Hyuk refuses to take part in something that degrading and threatens to run in alone if they keep mocking him. The assassin gives up, and they begin the mission. Kill 400 orcs in 4 hours. The summons rush ahead and tear through the orcs so quickly that Hyuk realizes the stage will be over before he even gets the chance to draw his weapon properly. Just as panic starts rising over how useless he is about to look, the assassin generously leaves one confused orc alive for him. Hyuk activates Shadow Step and leaps into the air while the orc stares upward in confusion, then brings down Lightning Soil Chaser. It is only a simple downward strike, but the moment it lands, he realizes that despite the ridiculous name, the skill is no joke at all. Hyuk brings his mace down onto the orc's head with a deeply satisfying hit, watches the creature collapse, and feels like a god of war. He starts to think that this whole hero business might actually be too easy, but before he can even finish celebrating internally, the giant meat shield drags him back to reality by casually crushing another orc underfoot and flattening it like a pancake. Hyuk turns toward his summons with a betrayed expression, reminding them that they had specifically agreed to let him at least secure one solo kill. The system has no interest in his complaints, though, and immediately floods him with rewards for clearing the 21st floor, including mana stones, healing potions, and yet another S++ platinum badge. Over the next few days, our hero settles into a smooth routine of rapid monster cleanup. He moves through the 22nd and 23rd floors with the same perfect rating, and by the time they reach the volcanic zone on the 24th floor, he hardly even sweats. Despite the heat, the team remains unstoppable, clearing one floor a day with the efficiency of a machine that never slows down. As he gets ready for the 25th floor, Hyuk realizes that taking down only one orc at a time is starting to feel a little dull, but he knows he still has to build trust with his overly protective summons for now. While preparing in his apartment, our hero decides that it is finally time to act like a generous employer. Realizing he has not given the two of them anything since they joined him, he pulls out a high-grade rune he had collected earlier. The red-haired assassin emerges from the shadows, immediately swearing loyalty and asking whether his master needs something. Hyuk hands over the rune, which turns out to be a grade-up item capable of raising a summons tier. The assassin is so overwhelmed that he actually bites the rune to make sure it is real, his eyes nearly turning into hearts as he realizes he can finally rise to SSR rank. He is close to tears, promising that once he becomes stronger, he will protect his master even better with his new form. Instead of upgrading on the spot, the assassin decides to wait until later that night, so he does not rush the process and end up with some broken new body. To celebrate, he chooses to stay nearby and watch television with Hyuk, though he is already starting to wonder how one show can possibly rerun that many times. As they change channels, Hyuk's heart nearly stops when he sees his mother on the news. She is standing outside with a protest sign in her hands, looking like a one-woman army fighting unfair dismissal and company abuse. It turns out she had been fired from her job as a water purifier manager because she refused to apologize for a customer's unreasonable demands, and she has spent 10 straight days protesting alone while company executives mocked her from their windows. Just as the news shows her reaching the edge of her patience, a polished lawyer from one of Korea's top law firms approaches her. He claims to be involved in a support project for socially disadvantaged people and offers to take her case for free, even promising to deal with the media side of it as well. His mother is suspicious at first, but she chooses to commit fully to the fight for justice. Back at the apartment, Hyuk is drowning in guilt, wondering what the point of having two sons is if their mother still has to suffer alone out on the street. The red-haired assassin immediately pulls out 2 knives and offers to pay the company executives a very violent visit, but Hyuk manages to stop him from turning it into a massacre at the last moment. Our hero starts calculating how many mana stones he would need to sell to cover any hidden legal costs. But then his father calls with even stranger good news. Not only is the lawyer free, but the best hospital in the country has suddenly chosen his father for a fully funded hip surgery and rehabilitation program. Before Hyuk can even process this sudden wave of good fortune in the family, he calls his younger brother, who reveals that he has just received a huge national scholarship from the Awakened Management Department. Hyuk quickly realizes that this is not just random kindness from the universe. Luck on this level has the government written all over it. He arranges a quiet meeting with the agency's team leader, and over a meal, he goes straight to the point and asks why they are interfering in his family's lives. The team leader does not even bother pretending otherwise, explaining that if Hyuk has problems at home, it affects how he performs inside the tower. He claims this level of support is normal for elite players, but before Hyuk can push back, the man drops a new contract onto the table. It is an ultra-elite special management agreement, and as the team leader grins and suggests they sign it on the spot, Hyuk starts sweating hard. His heart is slamming inside his chest, trying to break free as he faces the captain. The man is so excited that he looks like he might shake straight through the floor, insisting that Hyuk sign the elite team contract immediately. The professional coward realizes the captain came fully prepared to trap him, but he still tries to stay calm by claiming that he lacks both confidence and talent. The captain rises with the weight of someone delivering a final judgment, questioning whether Hyuk is really trying to act modest after setting records no one has ever touched before. Hyuk has absolutely no answer for that. He knows that pretending to be humble after clearing 24 floors with SSS-level ranks only makes him look like a complete fraud. The captain is practically pleading at this point, bringing up the recent incident involving that bastard Choi. He insists that Hyuk deserves full VIP treatment and the protection that comes with elite status. Hyuk tells him to sit down while he thinks it over. For him, the biggest problem is the mandatory video recording required under elite contracts, because he has no desire to see his homicidal summons turned into online celebrities. The captain has already prepared for that concern, promising that the recordings and security arrangements can be adjusted however Hyuk wants. He offers a high-security residence and even personal guards for Hyuk's family. Just as Hyuk's resistance starts crumbling like an old cookie, The captain drops the final bribe. 2 free houses, one for his family and one for himself. Hyuk's brain nearly shuts down at the thought of free property, but he still manages to ask for a little more time so he can get advice before signing away his future. The next morning, the assassin appears looking like he swallowed a glowing purple light. He has officially advanced from SR to SSR rank, and his new aura is so bright that Hyuk's eyes can barely handle it. Hyuk tells him to tone it down before they talk about the contract offer. The assassin is unexpectedly supportive, pointing out that Hyuk is basically a national treasure walking around in human form and deserves to be treated that way. Still, he has one condition that cannot be ignored. He warns Hyuk to demand full authority over when they enter and clear floors. He refuses to let greedy management filth drag them into danger before they are ready. The assassin explains that if Hyuk simply stays alive and keeps using his random summons, he will eventually be able to call beings that go beyond ordinary human limits. Hyuk's imagination can barely keep up with that level of power, but when he checks the numbers, he sees that his next random summon is still 19 days and some extra time away. After that strategy talk, Hyuk brings out the giant meat shield. The system confirms that both barbarian tanks are now present, but the poor giant immediately starts sweating. The assassin is in full bully mode, showing off his extra 2S ranks like a kid flaunting a brand new toy. The difference between them has become so massive that the giant is actually stumbling over himself in fear, unable to even look directly at the glowing purple assassin. Hyuk feels a bit sorry for his giant tank and decides that the next upgrade will definitely go to him. They head into the 25th floor, where the mission is to wipe out 100 orcs in 10 hours. As the wave of green monsters rushes toward them, Hyuk wonders whether he can secretly steal a few kills for himself. The assassin tells the giant meat shield to move first and draw the enemy's attention, and the barbarian launches himself into the air like a massive hairy cannonball. He crashes into the ground and sends orcs flying in every direction like scattered pins. Then the assassin decides to show off the speed of his new SSR rank. He moves so quickly that it feels as if a fighter jet has shattered the sound barrier right beside Hyuk's ear. He unleashes a huge blade explosion that turns the nearby orcs into a brutal burst of fire and steel. When a few surviving orcs try to slip in behind the assassin, they realize too late that they have only struck a clone. The real assassin appears behind them with a decisive ambush skill, ending them in a single clean motion. The remaining orcs stare at him with faces that make it clear they would rather be anywhere else. The assassin only wonders why they look so miserable when the real fun has barely begun, then draws his poison daggers for another round. Hyuk realizes that if he does not act quickly, his own summons are going to leave him with nothing to gain. Even though the assassin wants him to stay safe and do nothing but survive, Hyuk grips his mace and decides he needs to become strong enough that his team will finally stop treating him like dead weight. He decides he cannot stay a burden forever. He rushes an orc, cleanly evades its attack, and drives a hard kick into its back. Drawing on his rising confidence, he unleashes the first form of his primordial thunderstaff. The strike smashes into the orc's head and leaves the monster dead with purple energy bursting from the blow. As more enemies rush in, Hyuk uses Shadow Step to move through the chaos, dodging and attacking with surprising skill. Then the system suddenly delivers incredible news. He has unlocked the second form, Scatter Falling Thunder. Overjoyed, he tests it immediately. The staff releases a blast of lightning that splits into 5 branches, wiping out a whole group of orcs in a bright area attack. The assassin watches the display with eyes so wide they look ready to fall out. He rushes over with tears in his eyes, shouting that unlocking a new skill is no excuse to ignore their strict 1 kill per floor safety agreement. Hyuk instantly starts sweating and stammers out an apology. But then the professional coward experiences a rare flash of defiance. He wonders why he is always acting afraid around his own summons. Straightening up, he boldly declares that while he may be weak in the real world, inside the tower he is an absolute alpha. The assassin nearly breaks down, begging him to put safety first, but Hyuk brushes it aside. Drunk on his own confidence, he declares that he wants the orc chieftain to appear right now so he can crush its skull himself. Then he turns around and finds the orc chieftain already standing right behind him, looking like a furious wall of muscle. Our boy's whole alpha act vanishes in an instant. He drops his weapon, cries out for his bodyguard, and is immediately pulled out of danger by a very pleased, grinning assassin. Realizing he should have kept his mouth shut from the start, he points a shaking finger at the giant monster and orders his team to erase it. The summons are more than happy to obey. The giant meat shield rushes in from the front, while the assassin slips behind the distracted beast with his dirty ambush skill, bringing the boss fight to an end within seconds. System windows instantly fill Hyuk's vision. The 25th floor is cleared with an S++ rank, earning him another platinum badge. Because he has now piled up 25 of them, the system offers him a major reward. He is given the choice between trait enhancement, skill copy, a random item, or summon grade enhancement. He immediately chooses trait enhancement, knowing only an idiot would pick anything else. His status window updates and raises his simultaneous summon limit to 3, not counting himself. That means they are now a proper 4-man squad, and his next random summon cooldown is exactly 18 days away. To celebrate the victory, Hyuk treats his summons to a huge meal of spicy pork. When asked whether he can handle the heat, the assassin reacts with open confidence, acting as though being weak to spice is something beneath an SSR-ranked being. The giant happily devours his portion and says the food actually tastes sweet. Suspicious, the assassin takes one bite. A moment later, he is shaking on the floor and crying as the spice destroys his mouth. The giant looks up at Hyuk with bright eyes and casually suggests throwing the dying assassin in the trash and summoning a replacement. Hyuk only laughs at the betrayal. Feeling unusually confident, Hyuk decides it is finally time to tell his family the truth. He arrives home carrying expensive premium beef, and that alone causes immediate panic. His brother grabs him and demands to know where he got the money, while his mother starts asking whether he kept the receipt so the meat can be returned. His father plays peacekeeper and tells everyone to stop talking and just eat the expensive food. As he watches his family finally enjoy a proper meal, Hyuk drops the truth on them. He tells them that he is an awakened player. The table falls completely silent. His brother tells him to stop talking nonsense and eat his fruit. His mother assumes it is some awful joke, and his father asks whether he is talking about a video game. Since words are clearly not enough, Hyuk makes a quick call to the management team leader. Soon after, the whole family is standing in the lobby of an incredibly luxurious association building. The team leader formally tells his mother that her son is a precious national asset and a highly valued elite player. He then leads the stunned family upstairs and opens the doors to a huge, glittering penthouse. Hyuk gestures at the absurd display of wealth and calmly tells them that they live there now, leaving the entire family completely speechless. At the awakened management department, Joo-hyuk finally signed the agreement. Until not long ago, he had never imagined that he would end up accepting an elite contract. Life had turned in a direction he never expected. Team leader Gwang-hail apologized, saying that they could only offer an annual salary of 2 billion won because the starting pay for elite players was regulated. He added that someone like Player Ban should honestly be receiving far more. Joo-hyuk thought to himself that even 2 billion more now sounded strangely normal. His sense of reality was starting to dull. Then he explained that it had been his own decision. He simply was not comfortable with it becoming publicly known that he was the S++ rank record holder. If that happened, his private information would be exposed as well. If his face spread across television, social media, and every other major outlet, it would become difficult even for his family to go outside. Just imagining that was awful. That was why he had not even told his family that he was the S++ rank record holder. Gwang-hail nodded and then asked whether his family liked the house. If anything was missing, he said they should speak freely. Joo-hyuk replied that it was already more than enough. As he checked the message his brother had sent earlier, it said that he had seen their mother cry for the first time. She said she had never lived in a house like that before. It seemed she truly loved it. The message went on, saying that his own room was unbelievable too, with a laptop, a full gaming setup, and everything else. The television was so large it looked like a movie screen. He had thought he might actually faint. Then the message shifted into affection, but Joo-hyuk stopped reading there. He wondered whether life could really get any better than that, then immediately thought that such a wish might be greedy. Gwang-hail then showed Joo-hyuk the office residence where he would be staying and explained that everything had already been prepared. It had been fully furnished, with appliances and furniture included, so he could move in at once. He asked if Joo-hyuk was truly fine with a 2-bedroom unit, adding that they could provide something larger. Joo-hyuk liked it, and to him, it already felt like a penthouse. Meanwhile, in the largest penthouse in Korea located in Seoul, a residence owned by a rank 1 player, 2 women were peacefully enjoying the view from the pool. Then a man rose up from the water and broke the calm, asking how long they planned to keep swimming so boringly and whether they should not go out and have some fun instead. This was Joo-hyuk, the rank 1 player. His trait was all-weapon warrior. He held the highest proficiency across all weapons and possessed many deadly and ultimate skills. At present, he was climbing the highest floors of Korea's Black Tower. He lifted shot glasses filled with whiskey and remarked that one glass alone was worth 5 million won. Then he jokingly asked how the liquor tasted. One of the women laughed and said that if the alcohol tasted sweet that day, she might end up drinking all of it. Another woman then said that she had been curious about something. She noted that since he was a top player, he might know the answer. Hugh Keelman asked what it was. She then asked who on earth the record holder was for consecutive S++ clears through the 25th floor. That was all anyone had been talking about lately, and she was genuinely curious. He scoffed and asked what was so impressive about a mere 25th floor. He said he had no interest in some low-level nobody like that. But she kept pushing with a teasing tone, saying that an S++ clear was a world first, and asking whether he truly was not curious that such a player existed in their own country. Another woman tried to stop her, but before she could say more, he suddenly poured whiskey over her head. He coldly told her to keep talking. Then he warned the woman to listen carefully. He asked what she thought would happen if he stopped clearing the 66th floor right now. She froze in place. The Black Tower was currently forming in Gangjeong, but he asked what would happen if it appeared near a major city next time. Would South Korea be destroyed? She shook so badly that tears were almost ready to fall. She apologized, but he showed no mercy. He continued saying that the tower was collapsing because of people like her, with shallow faces and empty words. Then they left. Standing by the window in his room, he muttered that he felt terrible. Seriously. These player-obsessed women kept talking about S++, so he had even started surrounding himself with civilians. But no matter where he went, nothing changed. He clenched his jaw. China had contacted him again that month, just like the month before. They offered 180 billion won a year, a mansion, caretakers, a private jet, and treatment equal to that of a national leader. And Japan? 200 billion won annually, a luxury mansion, and 10 personal maids willing to fulfill whatever he wanted. Yet he had stayed in Korea, clearing the 66th floor, facing the dead for months. And this was the thanks he received? People fixated on some bastard who had only cleared the 25th floor? Ungrateful trash. He wondered whether he should just change nationality somewhere else. The 66th floor was not a joke. The 60th floor marked the start of the undead zone. On the 66th floor, specter masters appeared, ghost-like beings so horrifying that simply looking at them made the body shake. Physical attacks did nothing. Only elemental attacks had any effect. Treating them like the ordinary undead from fiction was a fatal mistake. Only those who had personally experienced that suffocating demonic energy could understand. After a single attempt, 3 full days of rest were needed just to recover from the mental damage. Even with accessories, elixirs, and light element weapons earned from tower rewards, staying alive was barely possible. Clearing the 66th floor would not be possible again for a while. He let out a slow breath, changing nationality. He should not just think about it. He should move forward with it. If he suddenly switched countries, it would throw everything into chaos, right? The deadline was getting closer. The collapse threshold of the 66th floor had already passed the halfway point. In about 3 months, the countdown would begin. The only hope would be him, Hugh Keelman, the top player. But by then, he would not even be in Korea. Those fools could regret it. They could despair. Ungrateful bastards. Back to Juhyuk, he ordered 10 fried chickens to celebrate the new house. He apologized to the delivery worker for ordering too much. Living in a player residential complex was unbelievably convenient. Staff handled everything, from management to small errands. Laundry pickup and delivery were effortless, and cleaners were available whenever needed. The building had everything. Restaurants serving 3 meals a day, cafes, gyms, dry cleaners, karaoke rooms, and even a swimming pool. He thought he should have moved there much earlier. Satisfied, he carried the food inside to share with the others. They had just finished the 26th floor mission, eliminating 20 swamp trolls. The swamp made the stage notoriously difficult, but thanks to his shadow skill, everything had gone smoothly. He had even taken one down himself. He stepped into the room and called out, asking what they were all watching so seriously now that the chicken had arrived. On the 100-inch television, a girl group was performing. Even Meatball could not look away. Juhyuk recognized it at once. A girl group on a 100-inch TV was dazzling enough to overwhelm anyone. Soon, they started eating. John asked whether they should head straight to the 27th floor the next day. Juhyuk agreed. Since they had already started, They might as well push all the way to the 29th floor. John then asked why the 29th. Joo-hyuk explained that they would repeat clears for 10 days. Then, once the random summon cooldown ended, he planned to challenge the 30th floor with a full party of 4. That made John wonder if they were recruiting a new member. He admitted he was looking forward to it, but then hesitation crept in. If an SSR rank summon or something even higher appeared, his place as the right-hand man might be in danger. Even so, for the summoner's safety, that outcome would probably be better. He could not make up his mind. Meanwhile, John Hyuk grinned. Even Meatball started cheering. A new member, more fighting. Team leader Gwang-il then returned. He brought the item that had been requested for player Joo-hyuk, Volcano Orc leather armor. It held heat from flame aura and blocked cold and freezing air. Joo-hyuk thanked him. Gwang-il answered that it was nothing. Supporting elite players was part of their job. Joo-hyuk said he would use it well and return it later. Gwang-il wished him luck on the 27th floor. Then they entered Black Tower, Korea, floor 27. It was famous for its brutal cold. But for Joo-hyuk, it actually felt warm because of his equipment. He asked Meatball whether he was cold. The giant answered that a warrior did not feel cold. Meanwhile, John was visibly freezing. He was nearly frozen halfway through standing there. Joo-hyuk asked whether he should lend him his hood. John replied that he was fine. He said he could suppress the cold with magic. Joo-hyuk let out a sigh. If only he had brains, Meatball would have been a true SSR. John then said that it got better when he moved, and that they should start hunting immediately. He rushed forward. Joo-hyuk muttered that he had thought Mr. Kozak had gone wild because of the cold, but to him it felt like sitting under a heated blanket. Honestly, even moving felt bothersome. Still, he figured he should at least catch one. He moved ahead with Meatball. But within seconds, a notification appeared telling him that he had successfully cleared floor 27. Joo-hyuk blinked in disbelief. Already? John answered in a shivering voice that he had cleared it for his summoner. In truth, he had mostly done it for himself. Then another notification appeared. An item had dropped. It was the tower-exclusive Roland Kingdom Paladin Captain's Holy Sword. It was a two-handed sword, but it was badly worn down. When Joo-hyuk picked it up, it felt extremely heavy. He could not tell what made it better than his current mace. He decided he would store it for now and throw it away later. Tower-exclusive Roland Kingdom Paladin Captain's Holy Sword. Its effects were increased attack power, sacred fire, spirit stability, and higher critical rate when fighting undead. Its limitation was that those effects applied only to undead enemies. Its durability was extremely low, meaning it needed repair after use. Its special feature was a faint radiance that infused both the wielder's body and sword. Joo-hyuk asked Meatball whether he wanted to try the sword, but the giant muttered that a warrior used his fists. Then Joo-hyuk turned to John and asked whether he needed it. John answered casually that the gear he used was wyvern leather armor and dwarven daggers. He only dealt in top-tier equipment. Both of them were stubborn in their own way. Joo-hyuk thought to himself that selling it really might be the only option. He wondered whether he should go back to the player shop. The sword was so old that he had no idea whether it would even sell. Still, before getting rid of it, he decided he should test it once. John told him to go ahead and wished him luck. Joo-hyuk swung the sword twice, and after just those 2 swings, all his stamina was gone. John nodded and praised him, saying it was impressive, exactly as expected of Summoner Ban. But Joo-hyuk answered that he could not even lift it properly, so the praise made no sense. This man truly had no idea when to stop. Even so, John added that he had done well. After all, physical ability was limited outside the tower. Joo-hyuk then asked whether there was really no way to remove that limit. John paused for a moment before saying that it was possible. If the boundary between the real world and the tower disappeared, that restriction would be lifted. The many towers across Earth would collapse, and reality itself would become the same as the tower. And when that happened, players would be able to use their full power. He looked at him with a serious expression and said that such a thing would be a sign of coming disaster. At the Japanese embassy in Korea, located in Gwanghwamun, a call came in. The message said that the rabbit wanted to leave its old nest and move to a new one. The rabbit referred to none other than the rank 1 player, Hugh Keelman. That was good news. Very good news indeed, the counselor replied. However, he added that the caller would have to bring him over personally. The wolves were watching the rabbit. He told them not to worry, saying calmly that he would handle it. Counselor Tomo of the Japanese embassy gave a faint smile. A storm was about to strike. 2 days later, at Black Tower in Gwanghwamun, Republic of Korea, floor 65 had been cleared. Progress stood at floor 66 with the deadline showing 92 days, 13 hours, 34 minutes, and 52 seconds. Jung-hook felt uneasy as he remembered what John had said about it being an omen of doom. Still, the higher floors were meant to be handled by top players like Hugh Keelman, right? Worrying would not change anything. He only needed to keep climbing at his own pace. So he decided that since they had cleared the 28th floor yesterday, today they would take on the 29th. The 28th floor had been troublesome, with giant trolls attacking from the tops of enormous trees. It would have been difficult for John alone, but thanks to Meatball, they had managed it. Thinking back, Jung-hook wondered how they had even dealt with those trees. If Meatball had only a little more intelligence, he would have been a true SSR. They had dropped from the trees like chestnuts. John had shouted a warning, and his finishing strike had been clean. But the 29th floor was different. It was infamous for its filthy plague trolls, creatures that wandered around dripping yellow pus and foul discharge. Some players had even gotten sick during their attempts. Jung-hook decided they needed to prepare carefully, then summoned John and Meatball. John immediately announced his presence with pride, saying he was at his summoner's service. Meatball quietly said that he was there as well. Jung-hook muttered for Meatball to please stop calling himself Meatball. Then they entered the 29th floor. Jung-hook asked whether the two of them were really fine without masks. Meatball confidently answered that warriors did not get sick. John replied that he was SSR and that wearing a mask only made it harder to breathe and move, so he would simply accept the risk. Surprisingly, because the two of them completely ignored the disease threat, their hunting speed was even faster than it had been on the 28th floor. They cleared it quickly. Afterward, John asked whether they would be having dinner together again that day. Jung-hook hesitated. Then he apologized. John blinked, clearly not understanding why he was apologizing. Jung-hook unsummoned both of them and mentally cursed himself as a traitor and a terrible employer. He thought they could spit on him if they wanted. But then his thoughts turned to the new house. If plague got inside it, that would be a disaster. He looked at Meatball. The giant was huge and would spread contamination everywhere. How were they supposed to go back together like that? The next day, at the gym inside the awakened management department, a woman was doing squats with a barbell. After finishing her set, she dropped the weight. She was Nam Gun, Korea's rank 2 player, a trained swordswoman currently climbing the 62nd floor. She frowned. The dark zombies on the 62nd floor released an aura that corrupted players during battle. She could not see a way past it. She clenched her fists and wondered if this was her limit. Even if that was the case, as an elite player, she believed she had to keep moving forward until her body gave out. She drank a protein supplement. At moments like this, mindset mattered. She prepared herself for another set. But suddenly, people rushed past her. Mina was among them. Something was clearly happening. Mina quickly explained that news had just broken. A press conference was underway and Hugh Keelman was speaking with a cold tone. He criticized the Awakening Management Department, saying it focused only on policy while neglecting allied teams. He declared that the future of the Republic of Korea looked bleak. Then he announced that he would leave Korea that very day and continue his career as a Japanese player. The news hit Jung-hyuk like a shock. Hugh Keelman, the country's top player, was switching nationality. Team leader Gwang-il confirmed it. That was why they had urgently called him in. He carefully asked how long it would take Jung-hyuk to reach the 60th floor. Jung-hyuk let out a quiet breath. He had expected this question. He explained that he was currently on the 29th floor. Even if he cleared one floor each day, it would take about 37 days to reach the 66th floor. The deadline was around 90 days, so it might look possible. But realistically, it was not that simple. For difficult sections, he would need at least 10 days of preparation. And according to his contract, climbing higher floors was entirely his own decision. Gwang-il lowered his head in apology. They had just signed the contract, yet he was already asking for something this heavy. Still, the situation had left them desperate. Jung-hyuk thought to himself that seeing that expression only made it harder to refuse. Even so, what seemed impossible might still be forced into reality. At that moment, the door suddenly burst open. It was Nam Gyun. She had rushed in after hearing the news from Mina. She asked immediately about light attribute items from the United States. Gwang-il shook his head. Those items were still extremely rare worldwide. She nodded, apologizing for her urgency, then noticed Jung-hyuk. She realized there was a guest present. Jung-hyuk froze under her gaze. Gwang-il hesitated before explaining who he was. Jung-hyuk quickly bowed, saying he was only there to sell some items. For someone like him, this moment alone felt like a major achievement. He then remembered something. He mentioned that he had obtained an item earlier and offered it for her to examine since she needed light attribute equipment. He showed her the sword. She carefully inspected it and asked if she could take a closer look. Jung-hyuk agreed immediately, his face flushing slightly. She examined the weapon and read its effects. Increased damage against undead and improved critical rate. Her eyes widened. She had never seen effects like that before. Then she placed her hand on his shoulder and asked him to lend it to her just this once, promising to repay him in any way. Jung-hyuk froze completely. Her face was close, far too close. His thoughts stopped entirely. He could not process anything beyond how beautiful she looked. For a brief moment, his mind drifted away from reality. He imagined an impossible future, standing beside her, living a completely different life. But in reality, he was simply standing there, lost in his own thoughts, with an awkward expression frozen on his face. Then she spoke again, asking whether he had just said he would lend her the holy sword. That was when Jung-hyuk finally returned to reality. He realized that he had drifted off into a ridiculous fantasy without even noticing. Startled, he straightened up at once. He quickly confirmed that yes, of course, he would lend it to her. He told her to use it freely and let him know how it performed. She thanked him warmly, calling him Player Bong, and said that if he ever needed help, he could ask at any time, and she would do whatever she could. She prepared herself almost instantly. She declared that she would challenge the 62nd floor right away. Gwang-il told her to return safely. As she left, Jung-hyuk wondered whether the sword would actually be useful. He hoped the review would be good enough that he could sell it for a decent price. He had planned to get rid of it anyway, so there was no point in getting greedy now. Still, he could not help wondering how much a holy sword like that might be worth. She entered the 62nd floor. The failure conditions were death or abandoning the mission. The moment she stepped inside, she frowned. The undead appeared immediately. Her whole body tensed. No matter how many times she faced this kind of enemy, she could never grow used to it. The crushing pressure and the suffocating energy that made her want to run away were still just as awful as ever. She activated the holy sword. A faint white glow appeared. The blade looked badly worn, and the light it gave off was dim. It felt weaker than expected. The other light attribute items she had used before had shown much brighter. She questioned whether this would really be enough. Then, the undead rushed her. She realized she had no choice but to confront it head-on. To face the enemy without retreating, that was a player's fate. She charged forward. Their attacks collided. The undead's claws were wrapped in dark energy, and that power came crashing toward her. Her body immediately felt heavy. At first, it seemed as though nothing had changed. She thought the sword was useless. Then suddenly, a system notification appeared. Holy Sword Effect, Steadfast Mind activated. A hidden effect had triggered. The dark aura that had entered her body was reflected and completely nullified. She froze for a moment in disbelief. Then she swung again. This time, one strike landed as critical damage against the dark zombie. Her eyes widened as she realized that the dark aura was being erased. If that continued, then the fight had already turned. She pressed the attack. Slash after slash followed. Within seconds, the dark zombie fell. It felt absurdly easy. And from there, she began tearing through the floor without stopping. Meanwhile, team leader Gwanyul checked the time. It had been 2 hours since she entered the 62nd floor. Whenever player Namgun failed, she usually returned by then. He wondered how it would go this time. Then she appeared. Juhyuk's eyes sharpened. She was back. Gwanyul welcomed her back and praised her effort. She told him to wait a moment while she took a healing potion and removed her armor. Juhyuk immediately thought that there was no way she could have already cleared it, so he assumed she must have abandoned the mission. Maybe even with the holy sword, it had still been impossible. He nervously asked how it had gone and said he was glad she returned safely. He asked whether the holy sword had at least been somewhat useful, and added that if it had not been good, she could be honest about it. She gave no answer at all. Instead, she walked straight toward him and wrapped him in a tight hug. And in that instant, something inside Juhyuk's lifelong, painfully untouched existence cracked apart completely. His brain stopped working. He could barely process what was happening. To him, she suddenly felt far too aggressive, far too close, and far too dangerous for his sanity. And just like that, his mind slipped straight back into full delusion mode. Now his mind had already gone even further. imagining the two of them attending their child's elementary school orientation together. She thanked him with complete sincerity, saying that without the holy sword he had lent her, she would have definitely failed. Meanwhile, Juhyuk was still trapped in his own thoughts, mentally watching their imaginary children grow up. Then she turned toward team leader Gwanyil. She reported that the 62nd floor clear had been a success. With more testing, she could confirm it fully, but if things continued going well, she believed that even the 66th floor might become possible with that sword. Team leader Gwanyil burst with joy. If that was true, then everything had changed. In his mind, he realized that if this sword had ended up in Yu Keelman's hands instead, it would have been a disaster. That man would have kept all of its value to himself. Then Gwanyil glanced at Juhyuk and thought that the more he learned about him, the more interesting he became. Gyun suddenly stepped back, apologizing because she had gotten carried away. That was when Juhyuk finally came back to his senses. It felt as if he had lived an entire lifetime inside that delusion. She explained that she had used the sword well, but the blade had been damaged in several places. Juhyuk thought that it had already been in rough condition from the start. At this rate, it would probably wear down completely after only a few more uses. Gwanyil added that this was not a problem. There were skilled craftsmen in the player workshop, and with proper repairs, the sword could last much longer. Relief appeared on her face. Juhyuk then asked whether the repair costs would be high. Gwanyil immediately answered that the department would cover it. Juhyuk hesitated for a moment, then asked whether they would rather buy it from him outright, since they were going to need it for clearing the higher floors anyway. Gwanyil shook his head. In his view, selling it would be a mistake. Renting it out would be far more profitable while still keeping ownership. There were hundreds of towers across the world, and most countries had not even reached the 60th floor yet. That meant people would come looking for this weapon. It could be rented out for 10 billion won every single time it was used. Juhyuk froze. A rental business. Pure profit. Gwanyil continued, saying that the department would even handle all the rental procedures for him. Juhyuk nodded immediately. Then he offered to rent it to the department for 1 billion won for now, while leaving room to expand globally in the future. Gwanyil quickly waved that idea away and said there was no need to worry. The department would handle everything. Once all of it was settled, Juhyuk was overflowing with excitement. 10 billion won per rental. It did not even feel real anymore. This was no longer just a sword, it was a gold mine. So he declared that the day called for a celebration. He bought food for John and Meatball. John was thrilled, clearly touched that Juhyuk had personally bought it for them. Even Meatball was overjoyed, saying that no one had ever treated him this well before. Juhyuk told them to eat as much as they wanted and not hold back. He admitted that thanks to the two of them, he had made it this far. That evening, breaking news spread across Korea. The 62nd floor had been cleared successfully. A new holy sword with divine attributes had been revealed. Player Nam Gun had emerged as a new hope for the 66th floor. People even began forgetting Yu Keelman. And just like that, because of Juhyuk's unexpected contribution, Korea's crisis slowly started turning into an opportunity. 10 days later, Juhyuk had spent the past stretch of time repeatedly clearing the 28th floor as preparation. Now the long-awaited moment had arrived. The cooldown on the random summon had finally ended. He washed himself carefully, trimmed his nails, and had even been fasting since the day before. He wanted the best result possible. He clasped his hands and prayed for something incredible. SSR. No, even better. LSR. Legendary super rare. John smirked and told him not to worry, saying it would turn out fine. Surely they would not end up with another summon like Meatball. Meatball immediately reacted to that. Juhyuk replied that there was nothing wrong with Meatball. After all, he had helped them clear so many floors already. John let out a sigh. Then he looked at Meatball, and the giant only smiled brightly. He told her not to smile like that again because it was unsettling. Then he forced himself to focus. Juhyuk called out for the random summon, praying that the result would be a high grade. A light appeared. A figure began to take shape, and it looked like a woman. It was a female summon. The light slowly faded, and she stepped forward with calm grace. She thanked him for summoning her and humbly greeted Master Ban. Her name was Giant Dao Rei. All three of them were stunned. She was clearly extraordinary, and the shock in the room spread instantly. Juhyuk asked what they were supposed to do now. John could only repeat the same question. Then the girl suddenly summoned a sword along with shaman bells. She declared with solemn resolve that although she might be lacking, she would devote her life to serving Master Ban. Juhyuk blinked at the sight of the sword and the bells. Was she really a shaman? Then her eyes sharpened, and her tone turned cold. She snapped at the others, demanding to know why they were staring at her like that. She asked how they dared look at a maiden with such greedy eyes, and warned that if they had any improper thoughts after seeing her beauty, they would not escape divine punishment. John flinched and tried to brush it off, claiming he had only been curious. She immediately shut that down and called him a liar. Joo-hyuk looked completely confused. He had no idea what kind of situation he had just summoned into existence. He quickly tried to interrupt and calm things down, but the moment her gaze turned toward him, her entire expression softened. She told him that he could look as much as he wished and simply sit back and enjoy the sight. Joo-hyuk froze. Was there seriously not a single normal summon among his followers? Still, SSR was an enormous win. She matched the rank of his strongest existing summon. Then another thought hit him. Were there different levels even among SSR summons? He checked her details. Name, Giant Dao Rei. Grade, SSR Super Special Rare. Type, Priestess. Affiliation, Imperial Shrine of the Heavenly Empire. Manifestation duration, 5 hours. Cooldown, 3 hours after dismissal. She was described as a strict, solemn, and commanding high priestess, the kind of person who killed the mood the moment she entered the room. Then suddenly, Joo-hyuk was dragged into her memories. He saw a vast empire. She had once been the princess of a great nation. From childhood, she showed deep interest in shamanism and eventually rose to become the empire's high priestess. After her father died, her younger brother took the throne, but he was soon murdered by their uncle, who stole the crown for himself. Consumed by fury, she swore revenge. She carried out a forbidden ritual, a death curse. Her uncle prepared for it, even sacrificing others to redirect the curse away from himself. But she was no ordinary shaman. She had been taught directly by the gods of the empire. Once her ritual was complete, nothing could endure her power. Her revenge succeeded. But using such a curse for personal vengeance was a violation of the natural order. The backlash consumed her, and she died young. Joo-hyuk returned to himself and immediately understood more. That explained her nature, her severity, and the force in her personality. It all fit. He then asked her a careful question. She answered that she was honored and told him not to hesitate. He asked who had founded the Chang Empire. She answered without the slightest delay. It had been the great King Jianlong, the ruler who defeated the wicked Wang and Kim clans and expanded their territory all the way to Goryeo. He had been a great ruler who changed the nation's name from Baekje to Chang. Joo-hyuk asked if that meant the giant founder of later Baekje was the one she was referring to. She slowly nodded and confirmed it. Then Joo-hyuk fell into thought. A parallel world. In her world, later Baekje had unified the 3 kingdoms instead of Goryeo. Kozak had once mentioned that his previous world also resembled modern Earth. Joo-hyuk kept thinking. The history before the 3 kingdoms matched what he knew. It seemed that history had split off exactly around that era. It was fascinating. No wonder she carried herself that way. She had literally been a princess. Then suddenly, another thought hit him. He had been fasting since the day before for the summon. Now that everyone was gathered, maybe they should eat some ramen. John agreed immediately and asked for a mild one. Then Joo-hyuk turned to Jian and asked about her choice. She hesitated, feeling that being picky about food went against proper conduct. Meatball said everything sounded amazing. John added that anything made by Master Bong was the best. Joo-hyuk smiled and said he would make it quickly, telling them to just grab a large bowl. Then Jian suddenly exploded. She demanded to know how they could act so shamelessly when they were merely summons. She said they deserved a beating and told them to get lost immediately. How could they allow Master Bong to prepare food with his own hands? Her sudden outburst startled Joo-hyuk. John protested, saying that they were the same rank, so he could not understand why she kept talking down to them. But Jian stepped forward with overwhelming authority. She said she had tried to stay reasonable, but now it seemed she would have to curse them just to make them understand. John immediately backed away. A curse was not something he wanted anywhere near him. In the very next moment, they were all in the kitchen. John declared that he would make the ramen. Even Meatball ended up struggling with the pot. Joo-hyuk let out a sigh. A crazed assassin and a savage warrior. Apparently even these death-defying lunatics still had things they feared. After the meal, Joo-hyuk asked if they should head to the tower. Jian declared that this maiden would serve him with complete loyalty and that he only needed to give the order. Then they entered the 30th floor. Joo-hyuk thought that Jian joining them might actually be a good thing. Kozak was completely intimidated by her now, so maybe that would force him to behave. John warned him not to act carelessly. Jian snapped right back and called him a brat, telling him to mind his manners. John answered that loyalty meant safety first. Meatball then declared that he would handle everything himself and that he would protect the summoner even if it cost his life. Jian heard that and turned to John, saying that although she first took him for ill-bred trash with no manners, his spirit was at least in the right place. John flushed a little and muttered to himself, wondering if the hierarchy had already been settled. The mission appeared. Defeat 18 trolls and 1 twin-headed troll. Time limit, 13 hours. John started analyzing the situation. He wondered how a shaman like Jian actually fought. Based on her past, he assumed it would involve curses. Maybe she would unleash some kind of death ritual on them. Then Jian suddenly summoned speakers. Normally, she explained, she would need a master drummer, but since she was alone, she had to make do with another method. Then she began the ritual. She declared that the god's protection was with Master Bong and ordered the wicked spirits to disappear. Divine energy spread across the battlefield. Meatball's body swelled with power, and his skin turned hard like steel. Even the troll's attacks could not leave a mark on him. With a single swing, he erased more than 10 trolls at once. Jong Hyuk's senses grew sharper. His attacks felt quicker, cleaner, and far more deadly. The trolls themselves began to slow down. He immediately realized that she was applying buffs and debuffs at the same time. He had never seen anything like it before. His fighting spirit surged wildly inside him. So he shouted that it was time for him to hunt some too. He tried to rush toward the trolls, but Jian grabbed him at once. She told him to hold back, insisting that combat was best left to his servants. He only needed to sit comfortably and watch. Jong Hyuk felt frustrated. He only wanted to take down one. But Jian could not understand why he would lower himself to stand beside such lowly beings. She insisted that he must not degrade himself like that. Jong Hyuk realized he was about to miss everything again. He told her to let go, but she refused. He could only curse the situation as it happened all over again. Before he could do anything, the mission was already finished. A level-up notification popped up. Jong Hyuk let out a sigh and thought bitterly that he had not managed to defeat even one enemy. He felt that he should have ignored her and forced his way in. Then Jian looked at him. She asked whether he was displeased. Her eyes shook visibly. She looked as though she might start crying at any second. Jong Hyuk froze. For a moment he could only stare, realizing that she really did look like she was about to cry. Leaving Ju Hyuk stunned and with no idea how to respond, he stood there completely lost as Giant Delray broke down in tears. Through her crying, she tried to explain that everything she had done came only from worry for his safety. Again and again, the people around her had disappeared, and she was terrified that the same thing would happen once more. Hearing that, Ju Hyuk finally began to understand the burden she carried. She had lost her father at a young age, been betrayed by someone she trusted, and had even watched her younger brother die. Even knowing the price, she had still chosen revenge, fully aware that it would take her own life in return. The feelings behind that choice, the loneliness, the fear, and the despair, suddenly became much more real to him. She was not just a summoned being tied to a duty, but someone with a fragile heart hidden beneath a cold and disciplined exterior. Ju Hyuk reassured her and promised that he would stay safe and would not recklessly throw himself into danger. That simple promise was enough to settle her. At that moment, John and Go Bang returned after finishing the cleanup. The instant John saw her crying, he completely misunderstood the situation. Assuming it had something to do with him, his reaction only made things worse. Covered in monster blood, he immediately drew her anger again and was quickly chased off under the threat of another chant, leaving him no choice but to retreat without resistance. Later, back at home, Ju Hyuk counted the rewards they had gained from their progress. After collecting 30 badges, he unlocked a hidden reward, a cooldown reset ticket for his summoning skill. The idea of calling another companion right away crossed his mind, but when he looked at his current group, he decided not to do it. Their strength was already more than enough, and it seemed smarter to save that chance for a moment when it was truly needed. Meanwhile, Ga-hyun continued climbing and successfully cleared the 63rd floor. News of her success spread quickly, drawing attention to how important the Holy Sword had become against undead enemies. With that weapon, as long as the dark aura could be resisted, the undead were no more dangerous than ordinary monsters. As the deadline to conquer the 66th floor grew closer, tension spread throughout the country. With Gwangil gone, uncertainty weighed heavily on everyone. Even so, Ga-yun publicly declared that the goal would be reached within a month. Plans were also announced to rent out the Holy Sword internationally, though one exception was made completely clear. It would never be lent to the country that Gwangil had chosen to join. During all of this, Gwangil reacted with open fury, blaming the entire mess on the fact that the sword had not been revealed earlier. At the same time, pressure from higher authorities forced him to speed up his own climb, pushing him to challenge the 57th floor immediately and even appear on television to calm public opinion. His frustration only deepened, and he became set on finding the owner of the Holy Sword and making that person pay. As the news spread across the internet, speculation over the sword's owner exploded. Seeing all the praise aimed at that unknown figure, Ju Hyuk could not help feeling a quiet sense of pride. Behind him, the others could only watch in silence. Not long after, a delivery arrived. It was the high-end ice cream Ju Hyuk had impulsively ordered. Deciding to treat everyone, he handed it out. As usual, he took the first bite himself, a small habit that had formed ever since Giant Del Rey joined them. Go Bang and John immediately gave in and ate without restraint, while Giant Del Rey at first tried to keep her dignity, criticizing their poor manners. But the moment she tasted it, that composure fell apart. The sweetness caught her completely off guard, and even she could not hide the reaction. She tried to recover her pride afterward, but it was obvious that she had been affected just as much as the others. Once they finished, she thanked Ju Hyuk and then brought up a request. Before her summoning time ended, she wanted to perform a ritual to draw good fortune toward him and drive away misfortune. When asked whether there was anything troubling him, John immediately brought up Gwangil and retold everything that had happened. The moment Giant Del Rey heard the story, anger rose inside her. She declared that such a person should not go without punishment and asked for an item that had once belonged to him. Ju Hyuk refused at first, worried about what might happen if she used another dangerous curse. But she explained that this would not be a death curse. It would be a karmic ritual, something that would only speed up the natural consequences of his own actions. She assured him that it would not harm her, and after hearing that, Ju Hyuk agreed. Soon afterward, John returned with an item Gwangil had once used. Using that object, Giant Del Rey began the ritual and called upon the balance of karma. When the process ended, an unseen force settled into place, leaving the result to fate. Depending on the weight of Gwangil's past actions, the outcome could range from small misfortune to something far more severe. Elsewhere, Gwangil appeared on television, now presented as Japan's sole hope for conquering the Black Tower. As Japan's symbol for that mission, Gwangil stepped onto the stage and was met at once with loud applause. During the broadcast, he carried himself with full confidence, explaining that although there was still time before the deadline, he had chosen to move early in order to reassure the public. With his strength, clearing the 57th floor seemed like nothing difficult at all, and he intended to prove it right there on the spot. Without hesitation, he entered the Black Tower. The mission was to hunt 15 flame wyverns within 14 hours, creatures that dominated the sky and preyed on ogres. He had cleared this floor many times before, so he knew its patterns well. Even so, as the fight began, a strange sense of unease started creeping over him. He began by targeting enemies that were isolated, the usual method for avoiding being surrounded. As an all-weapon user, he could adjust to any distance, so he opened the battle with long-range attacks. But something immediately felt wrong. The first arrow he released deflected in an unexpected direction, striking a different wyvern and drawing extra attention, though dealing with two at once was still within his ability. Even so, the battle did not unfold the way it should have. After bringing them down, he noticed something unusual. Not a single one of his attacks had triggered critical damage. He brushed it aside and moved forward. Then things got even worse. A sudden sneeze ruined his aim, sending an arrow straight into a cluster of wyverns. At once, 3 of them focused on him and launched a coordinated assault. Even stranger, all 3 released dragon breath at the same time, something rarely seen because of the burden it placed on them. Forced into a desperate corner, Gwangil brought out his strongest skills and barely survived the clash. After a brutal fight, he killed 2 of them, leaving 1 weakened wyvern behind. Thinking he had regained control of the situation, he moved in to finish it. That confidence vanished almost immediately. As he stepped back, he accidentally crushed a wyvern egg hidden on the ground, something that should never have been there in the first place. The cry of the hatchling rang across the battlefield and drew the attention of the nearby wyverns. The moment he understood the danger, Gwangil realized that staying any longer would get him killed. With no other choice left, he retreated and abandoned the challenge. Outside the tower, the timing could not have been worse. He reappeared right in the middle of a live stage performance. The audience was shocked, but he ignored everything around him and immediately drank a healing potion. Even with the crowd erupting around him, he showed no reaction and walked away in silence. News of his failure spread across the world at once. Public opinion turned vicious, and he quickly became a target of open ridicule. At the same time, Ju Hyuk continued climbing and cleared the 31st floor. But once again, he had failed to join the fight himself, and that left him deeply irritated. Meanwhile, Gayun kept advancing at an incredible pace, breaking record after record thanks to the power of the Holy Sword. Elsewhere, discussions about the sword had already begun in the United States. Since their own deadline was still secure, their attention shifted away from urgency and toward strategy. They decided to delay negotiations and use Japan's growing desperation to squeeze out the highest possible profit, planning to wait until the pressure reached its peak before acting. Then news spread that Chow Min had failed the same floor twice in a row. As a result, he had completely vanished from public life, unable to even step outside his own home. All across Japan, public opinion had turned against him, and a clip of his humiliating collapse spread everywhere, making his situation even worse. Bong Ju-hyuk thought about it and felt that Chow Min was simply facing the result of his own choices. There was some curiosity over whether that curse would last forever, but it was understood that it would not. Once the balance of his actions was restored, the curse would naturally fade away. Even so, although he believed it was deserved, Bong Ju-hyuk still felt a small trace of pity for him. Then his attention shifted, and his energy returned. It was time to challenge the 32nd floor. Cossack prepared himself with a short warm-up, eager to push his efficiency in combat as far as possible. Meanwhile, Mikasa stayed calm and ready as always. At the same time, Meatball was visibly thrilled, practically shaking with excitement at the thought of hunting monsters again. Before they headed out, Bong Ju-hyuk suddenly stopped and said that he had something important to discuss with Mikasa. To shape the mood, he revealed a stack of premium ice cream boxes. The moment Mikasa saw them, she nearly lost control of herself, her excitement rising at once. Bong Ju-hyuk recognized the brand immediately and knew it was one of the highest-tier ice creams available. Meatball reacted just as strongly, his eagerness becoming almost ridiculous to watch. Bong Ju-hyuk found Cossack's knowledge of the brand a little strange, but he let it pass and told both Cossack and Meatball to leave the room so he could speak with Mikasa alone. The two reacted dramatically, begging not to be left out, their emotions swinging all over the place. In the end, Bong Ju-hyuk had to promise them meat if they left, and that instantly changed their attitude. Without any further resistance, they walked out. With the room finally quiet, Mikasa reached toward the ice cream, overcome with delight. She looked at Bong Ju-hyuk with clear admiration, obviously pleased by what he had brought her. But he shifted the conversation and questioned whether it really made sense for someone like him to contribute so little in battle. Determined to change that, he declared that from that point on, he would personally hunt several monsters himself. Mikasa tried to negotiate, aiming to limit his involvement for the sake of his safety. After going back and forth for a while, they reached a compromise. Bong Ju-hyuk would kill 3 monsters per floor. With no better option left, Mikasa accepted the condition. Soon after, they entered the 32nd floor. The mission there was to eliminate Stage 2 Minotaurs. Bong Ju-hyuk explained that Minotaurs appeared from the 31st to the 35th floors, with their stage rising on each level. The environment on those floors suited them perfectly, allowing their bodies to grow larger and larger. While Meatball stood at about 3 meters, the king of those creatures could reach 6 meters in height. Even the Stage 2 Minotaurs standing before them now were around 4 meters tall. Their sheer size alone was enough to shake anyone. Seeing such a huge enemy from up close, Bong Ju-hyuk felt doubt creeping in. After pushing Mikasa to let him fight, backing down now would be humiliating. Just as hesitation started to settle in, Mikasa activated her support magic from behind. Her spell strengthened Bong Ju-hyuk and his summons at the same time, while also slowing the enemies. Encouraged by that silent support, he looked around. Meatball was already holding his ground and had brought down several Minotaurs. Cossack stood nearby, ready to step in at any moment if things went wrong. Realizing he was not alone, Bong Ju-hyuk gathered himself and moved toward his target. The Minotaur attacked first, trying to crush him with force, but Bong Ju-hyuk pushed ahead, using Shadow Step to slip around it. At the right moment, he activated the 3rd form of his primordial Thunder Staff, Falling Thunder Flash, and drove the attack straight into the creature's head, bringing it down in one clean strike. He thought about how repeated floor clears had allowed him to unlock that new form. Its speed and power were on a completely different level, though the cooldown was longer. Despite the fear he had felt at the start, he managed to keep his promise and defeat 3 monsters himself, while Cossack and Meatball cleaned up the rest. Once again, the floor ended with an S++ rank, earning him another platinum badge. The following day, attention turned to Anya, who had just returned from a higher floor. When asked about her progress, she described the 65th floor as extremely difficult. At first, it sounded as though she had struggled badly, but it soon became clear that she had still cleared it in only 6 hours. Everything was moving according to plan, and after a short rest, she intended to challenge the 66th floor. Elsewhere, officials gathered for a meeting to discuss the situation. Even though Chow Man's failures in Japan did not directly affect Korea, unease still remained. After a long discussion, one conclusion was reached. The 66th floor had to be cleared at any cost. Doing so would buy them another 6 months. There was confidence that Bong Joo-hyuk could reach the 60th floor within that time, allowing him and Anya to join forces on the upper floors. Still, one concern remained. People began to worry about whether Bong Joo-hyuk's holy sword would last that long, considering how badly its condition had already started to decline. Even with that concern, trust in his ability remained strong. People compared him to other top players and kept reaching the same conclusion. Bong Joo-hyuk was exceptional, possibly even beyond them. His streak of consecutive S++ clears had already broken all previous standards. Then, at that very moment, another update came out and pushed that record even further. He had now reached 33 consecutive S++ clears. That only strengthened the belief that he would become one of the nation's most important players. Later, Bong Joo-hyuk examined a perception-blocking talisman. Its effect allowed his summons to appear as harmless creatures in the eyes of others. To normal people, they would still seem ordinary, and even powerful figures from the past had once used tools like this. When he tested it, he realized it worked perfectly, even on Meatball despite his huge size. No one showed fear. Then a notification appeared, informing him that 1 billion won had been deposited into his account as a rental fee for the sword. Realizing that Anya had kept making progress with it, he figured that even more money would follow soon. The thought of that kind of wealth pulled him into a brief fantasy about living in complete luxury. Later, he went outside with his summons and watched how ordinary people reacted to them. One passerby even found Meatball cute, seeing him as a harmless little creature because of the talisman's effect. That confirmed the item worked flawlessly. Satisfied, Bong Joo-hyuk decided to treat his companions to an expensive meal. Even though the restaurant prices were outrageous, he told them to eat as much as they wanted. They showed no concern for the cost and enjoyed everything without restraint. The next day, reality hit him hard. The final bill was enormous, leaving Bong Joo-hyuk staring at it in disbelief. Even so, he forced himself to move past it and turned his attention back to the next goal, clearing another floor. Before long, they arrived at the 34th floor, where the mission was to defeat 20 Stage 4 Minotaurs. The moment Bong Joo-hyuk saw one, he was hit by its overwhelming size. It stood around 6 meters tall and completely dwarfed him. Fear crept in as he wondered how he was supposed to kill something like that. He quickly came up with a plan. First, break its balance by attacking the legs, then finish it while it was unstable. But uncertainty still remained. At that moment, Cossack stepped forward and offered support. On the condition that Bong Joo-hyuk would fight only one monster, he agreed to help. With that settled, Cossack coordinated with Meatball. Meatball took position to assist, planting his stance properly this time. Bong Joo-hyuk understood the plan. He would use Meatball's raw strength to launch himself high into the air. Trusting his team, he ran forward and jumped onto Meatball's hands. With a powerful shove, he was thrown high into the air, but the force was far greater than he had expected. He shot upward out of control, lost his balance in midair, and then began falling faster and faster. Panic hit him, but at the final moment, he activated Shadow Step, slowing his fall and regaining control. In that instant, he felt that something had changed. His movement had become lighter, almost as if he could walk through the air itself. The moment he recognized that shift, he understood that his skill had evolved. He gave this new ability the name Shadow Walker, reflecting its power to let him move freely even in midair. After landing safely, he was filled with excitement at having unlocked yet another skill. The next moment showed Ju Hyuk using Shadow Step through the air itself, leaving his other 3 summons completely stunned. Ju Hyuk remembered something from the past, when his captain had once said that someone had been seen performing shadow steps among the clouds, a story he had never believed. But seeing Ju Hyuk now made it clear that such a thing was truly possible. Ju Hyuk moved closer to the Minotaur, while thinking that he might be traveling too fast, and he questioned whether he could even aim properly at that speed. In the end, he decided there was only one way to know. He then activated the 3rd form of his Primal Lightning Staff, Falling Thunder Flash, and with a single strike, the Minotaur was knocked out instantly. Ju Hyuk felt proud when he realized he had managed to land safely by using the recoil from the attack, though a brief unease followed as he wondered whether he had nearly lost control in the process. His 3 summons stared at him in admiration and praised him openly, describing his talent as blinding and saying that even they could not reproduce something like that. They admitted that their summoner deserved to be called a warrior and showed deep respect, even while continuing to urge him to be careful. One of them added, while pretending to stay calm, that even she had felt her hair rise from worry. Ju Hyuk admitted that he had also been shaken, but somehow he had still managed to pull it off. The summons then immediately moved to finish the remaining Minotaurs, tearing through them without hesitation. A system window informed Ju Hyuk that he had successfully cleared the mission on the 34th floor, gained a level, received 3.4 kilograms of mana stones, and obtained a summon grade-up rune. Ju Hyuk was stunned when he realized that a summon grade-up rune had dropped as an ordinary reward rather than a special bonus, and it felt to him like hitting the jackpot. Another system message confirmed an S++ clear rank for the 34th floor of the Black Tower in Korea, granted him a platinum badge, unlocked the 35th floor, and then removed him from the tower. After returning home, Ju Hyuk praised all of his summons for how well they had performed. Then, in a private moment, he quietly asked Cossack whether an SSR summon could be raised to LSSR by using the grade rune. Cossack denied it without hesitation, explaining that the rune could only raise a summon as far as SSR. Not long after, Meatball was called over for dinner by Dal Rey. Cossack immediately started complaining to Dal Rey, angrily grumbling about how expensive it was to keep Ju Hyuk's team fed, and Dal Rey also scolded Meatball for eating too much. Meatball became visibly upset and promised that he would eat less from now on. Ju Hyuk ended up feeling sorry for him and handed Meatball a grade-up rune to help him rise in rank. Meatball thanked him through tears and threw himself into a tight hug, accidentally pressing his chest hair into Ju Hyuk's face, which filled him with disgust. The scene then shifted to the Chinese Special Information Department, where Xiu Jun, the deputy director, called in a section officer and demanded to know why there was still no news about clearing the 59th floor. The officer reported that among the forcibly naturalized assets, more than half had gone missing inside the tower, causing major setbacks, and that many were said to have taken their own lives within it. Shujun received a list of elite South Korean players and ordered the officer to select proper targets from recently contracted rookies, making it clear that famous names were to be avoided and that everything had to be carried out without leaving evidence, so the country could never deny responsibility. The officer saluted and left. After that, Shujun reflected coldly that unlike Japan's public attempts at forced naturalization, which had only ended in humiliation, they would simply abduct players if that became necessary. A short time later, 2 days passed. Ju Hyuk and his summons had mostly been living on ramen, as Cossack was trying to save money. Ju Hyuk remained focused on other concerns when a system window appeared, showing a catalog update that listed the dull barbarian meat shield as unable to be summoned. Ju Hyuk immediately became worried, but Cossack explained that ranking up involved strengthening the soul and was dangerous, with the risk of permanent deletion if the process failed. The word deletion struck Ju Hyuk hard. Dal Rey scolded Cossack for frightening him and quickly reassured Ju Hyuk that if Meatball had truly been deleted, his name would have disappeared completely. She explained that his inability to be summoned probably pointed to another cause, possibly the rare case of a 2-rank leap. Cossack agreed and suggested that Meatball's soul was unusually pure, making him better suited for a successful upgrade. Ju Hyuk, however, rejected Cossack's misunderstanding in his own mind and kept worrying about what a sudden rank jump might mean. Trying to change the mood, Ju Hyuk suggested that they go to a cafe after eating ramen. Then another concern hit him. What if Meatball returned even bigger than before, and what if the new house no longer had enough space? The scene shifted to a cafe, where two men were talking about the coming raid on the 66th floor, assuming it would be cleared easily because of the Holy Sword. One of them openly expressed admiration for a hero named Nam Gi-un. The other immediately rebuked him for speaking of her without proper respect. Ju Hyuk, moving through the area like any ordinary passerby, stepped in and, without anyone noticing, ended up embracing Nam Gi-un by accident. The cafe drinks and desserts soon arrived, and everyone enjoyed them together. At that moment, Gwangil called Ju Hyuk to congratulate him on his record-breaking streak of consecutive S++ clears. He then brought up the penthouse that had once been used by Yuchi Alman, offering to transfer it to Ju Hyuk for free as a gesture of gratitude for renting out the Holy Sword at such a low price. Ju Hyuk was caught off guard and asked for time to think before ending the call. Cossack asked who had called, and Ju Hyuk reminded him about the house they had visited earlier. Cossack admitted that it had been magnificent, while Dal Rei agreed that a place like that suited Ju Hyuk's position. Cossack warned him not to trust free gifts, insisting that nothing in life ever came without a price, while Dal Rei encouraged him to accept it as a fair reward for everything he had already contributed. Ju Hyuk remained torn, thinking about how accepting such a gift could make it much harder to refuse future demands from the management department. In the end, he decided that he would buy the house instead. His summons praised that choice, but the moment he checked the price, Ju Hyuk discovered that it was 20 billion won, not the 2 billion he had expected. That left him frozen in place. Cossack asked what had happened, and Ju Hyuk quietly decided that they should leave. As they walked out of the cafe, the summons talked among themselves about how they might not need such a huge home after all. They brought up the trouble of cleaning it, the cost of maintaining it, the long walk to the bathroom at night, the bugs that would gather in the garden, and all the other inconveniences. In the end, they concluded that being with Ju Hyuk mattered more than living in a large place, and they praised his judgment as brilliant. Then, at that moment, two suspicious men entered the cafe carrying the smell of weapons, blood, scars, and gunpowder with them. Cossack immediately recognized them as the same kind of people as himself, and silently marked both of them for tracking. Ju Hyuk called for Cossack and told him they were heading home. Cossack decided internally that, for now, he would keep the situation hidden from his summoner, and the scene ended there. The scene shifted to the Awakener's management administration, where Nam Ga-yoon sat in silence, fully absorbed in image training inside her own mind. In her thoughts, she reviewed how the Holy Sword was vital for neutralizing the dark aura of the undead. Even so, she firmly decided that she could not depend on that weapon alone. Her mental training played out clearly, throwing endless enemies at her, including dark mummies, dark zombies, dark skeletons, dark ghouls, and even a full undead army. She had already cut down hundreds of them to reach her current level, strengthening her resolve and sharpening her senses. As the intense image training came to an end, Ga-yoon prepared to leave. Her superior addressed her formally, wishing her luck and telling her to stay careful. Mina also voiced her concern, supporting her with clear worry on her face. With their encouragement behind her, Ga-yoon moved toward the 66th floor of the Korea Black Tower, her focus unshaken as she entered the battlefield. Soon, a skeletal monster appeared in front of her, and without delay, she rushed straight into combat. Hours passed through a brutal struggle, and after 10 exhausting hours, Ga-yoon finally came out of the tower. Her body was drained, her breathing was rough, and the fatigue was obvious. Mina hurried toward her in panic, but Ga-yoon reassured her with a faint smile and a thumbs up, silently showing that she had succeeded. At that moment, a system notification appeared, confirming that the 66th floor of the Korea Black Tower had been cleared. The screen showed detailed information about the location in Gangwon-do, Republic of Korea, the cleared floor, the progression to the 67th floor, and the updated time limits. Hearing the news, Mina excitedly informed Gwang-il and their superior, who were overwhelmed with joy. The boss immediately ordered a press release to be sent out without delay, fully understanding the scale of the achievement. The news spread quickly through the media, announcing that South Korea had successfully cleared the 66th floor of the Black Tower. Special broadcasts followed, and the public reacted with huge relief and admiration. Many said they had been holding their breath for 6 months and could finally sleep without fear. Comments poured in, praising the achievement as legendary and admitting that the country might have been doomed without Nam Ga-yoon. Others called her South Korea's new rank one, saying that real heroes were the ones who quietly held the line. The story of sacrifice and loyalty struck the public deeply. People compared her to those who had fled during the crisis, contrasting them with Gayun's unshaken dedication. Emotional reactions spread as viewers admitted they had cried while watching her enter the battle alone. Calls began demanding national support for her, celebrating her achievement along with the Holy Sword Dungeon. During her interview, Gayun humbly credited her success to the support of the citizens, rather than taking all the credit for herself. She also gave sincere thanks to the owner who had lent her the Holy Sword, showing her modest nature despite the massive praise surrounding her. Meanwhile, Jae-hyuk watched the broadcast on television while speaking with Gwang-il on the phone. He had already expected her to succeed, and he felt relieved that the 6 months they gained would give him enough time to climb higher floors at his own pace. After ending the call, he found himself restless, filled with a strong urge to move. He wanted to enter the 35th floor soon, but his progress had been delayed because of Go-bang's condition. Then, a system notification suddenly appeared, showing a catalog update for Savage Meat Shield. Jae-hyuk noticed that the restriction blocking the summon had vanished. Without hesitation, he summoned Meatball, also known as Go-bang. As the summoning finished, Jae-hyuk eagerly wondered whether the result would be SR or SSR rank. The system confirmed that Savage Meat Shield had been successfully called through designated summon. Jae-hyuk welcomed Go-bang back, but his expression quickly shifted into shock when he saw the transformation. Go-bang was no longer the same huge and bulky figure. Instead, he looked fit, muscular, and shockingly handsome, with a sharp body and clear 8-pack abs. Go-bang thanked him, saying he had been afraid he would never return, and that he was deeply grateful to be summoned again. The system displayed his updated catalog, showing that his rank had risen to SSR. He was now classified as a savage warrior, with detailed stats including manifestation limits, satisfaction rating, and cooldown time. Soon after, Dalry and Cossack were summoned as well. They greeted Jae-hyuk with respect, but both froze when they saw Go-bang's new appearance. Cossack, confused and uneasy, questioned whether their existence had been exposed to another person. Jae-hyuk explained that the transformed warrior was none other than Go-bang himself. Their disbelief was clear. As Cossack struggled to accept it, Jae-hyuk congratulated Go-bang on his reinforcement, noting that the sharp rise in rank had changed his body completely. To confirm his identity, Jae-hyuk asked Go-bang to recite the 3 laws of the summoned. Go-bang tried to answer, but failed to remember them properly, which reassured Jae-hyuk that despite the new appearance, it was definitely the same Go-bang. With Go-bang back, Jae-hyuk suggested entering the tower again for a farming mission. The team agreed and moved to the 34th floor of the Korea Black Tower. When they arrived, they faced massive demons. Go-bang stepped forward, saying he would take the lead. Jae-hyuk hesitated, worried about his new form, which now looked smaller compared to his former towering size. Jae-hyuk suggested that Go-bang should receive buffs from Dalry and work together with Cossack, but Go-bang refused, saying he wanted to test his evolved strength on his own. Trusting his resolve, Jae-hyuk reluctantly agreed, while telling Cossack to stay ready in case intervention became necessary. Go-bang then let out a thunderous shout, drawing every demon's attention at once. Jae-hyuk grew alarmed, thinking it would have been smarter to fight them one by one, but then Go-bang transformed again, growing even larger than before. His size now rivaled a minotaur's, reaching a massive scale that stunned everyone there. What followed was pure, overwhelming force. Go-bang fought the entire group of demons alone, showing incredible toughness and destructive power. His once reckless style now looked controlled and terrifying. Jae-hyuk watched in awe, even joking that he should have brought popcorn to enjoy the show. Cossack, however, reacted with irritation, complaining that Go-bang's power had been boosted far more unfairly than his own rune upgrade. Dowry scolded him sharply for that attitude, reminding him that Go-bang's increased strength meant Jae-hyuk would be safer. Realizing his mistake, Cossack apologized, clearly ashamed. Jae-hyuk then stepped in, softly asking Dowry to treat Cossack with more respect. Constant harsh words were unnecessary and made things uncomfortable. Dowry accepted the correction and sincerely apologized to Cossack, even taking his hand as a sign of goodwill. The reconciliation relieved Jae-hyuk, who wanted the group to stay united. Meanwhile, Go-bang kept fighting fiercely. At one point, he was struck from behind, making Jae-hyuk panic for a moment. But Go-bang answered with even greater force, completely overpowering the demons. His performance went far beyond anything he could do as an R rank, proving just how much he had grown. Soon after, a system message confirmed that the 34th floor mission had been cleared successfully. Go Bang returned to his refined human form and calmly stated that the 34th floor had been far too easy for him. There was no arrogance in his tone, only quiet certainty backed by overwhelming strength. The energy still hanging in the air made it clear that he had not even gone all out. Even the system's presence felt strangely subdued, as if recognizing his dominance. Go Bang expressed a desire to challenge stronger floors and keep fighting without end. Jae Hyuk, impressed and excited, declared that S++ clears would no longer be a problem. With renewed confidence and determination, he decided to climb quickly toward higher floors, moving forward together with. The next scene showed Dalry, Joohyuk, and Meatball sitting together while eating. Joohyuk looked at Meatball and smiled, thinking that with his increased firepower and a more compact SSR form, things felt satisfying in many ways. However, despite the change in appearance, Meatball still ate like a wild animal, throwing food everywhere. Seeing that, Joohyuk's smile faded, replaced by disappointment, realizing that nothing about Meatball's behavior had improved. Frustration burst out, and he snapped at him to stop making a mess. Meanwhile, Cossack sat quietly, his thoughts far away as he stared coldly out the window. Joohyuk noticed and asked why he was not eating. Cossack forced a small smile and brushed it off, saying he simply had things on his mind. Dalry pointed out that his jealousy was too obvious in front of the young master. Cossack, looking shaken and close to tears, denied it strongly. He explained that thanks to Meatball, Summoner Bong was much safer now, and that he was genuinely glad about it. Joohyuk reminded himself not to lower his guard just because Meatball had gotten smaller, noting that his appetite seemed even worse than before. He offered some food he had saved. Cossack became emotional, eating while crying and expressing how moved he felt. Joohyuk then asked if there was anything else he needed. Cossack hesitated before admitting that his manifestation time was about to end and asked to be summoned again around midnight. He explained the designated summon cooldown, that once his time expired, 3 hours had to pass before he could return. Joohyuk asked why, and Cossack shyly revealed the reason. There was a football match scheduled overseas that night, and he wanted to watch it live. Joohyuk looked surprised, wondering if Cossack had always liked football. Cossack eagerly confirmed it, clearly excited. Joohyuk agreed to summon him again later, and Cossack smiled with genuine happiness. Joohyuk then mentioned that he planned to visit the Awakening Management Department since he had gathered a large amount of mana stones. Cossack grew uneasy and asked if he was going alone, requesting to go with him. Meatball insisted that the outside was dangerous, saying the warrior should protect the summoner. Dowry also stepped in, suggesting that it was safer if they accompanied him. All of them acted like he was a child, refusing to let him go by himself. Joohyuk grew annoyed and snapped, reminding them that they could not even enter if they were not registered as players. The scene then shifted to the Awakening Management Department. Joohyuk arrived in a car sent by Gwang. Gwang welcomed him warmly, thanking him for taking the time to come. Joohyuk smiled and said that since a car was always sent for him, it was never a hassle. In his mind, he thought that the real difficulty had been leaving his summons behind. He casually mentioned that a normal car would have been enough, since he was not used to riding in limousines. Gwang laughed it off and told him not to feel burdened, saying that such treatment was only natural. Then he guided Joohyuk inside. They sat down on a sofa, and Gwang informed him that the mana stones he had brought weighed 54 kilograms, and that a total of 27 million won had already been deposited. Joohyuk expressed his thanks. Gwang congratulated him on clearing the floor and pointed out that player Nam Gi-eun had also performed remarkably well. He added that her success was largely due to Joohyuk lending her the Holy Sword. Then he brought up the penthouse transfer again and asked if Joohyuk had made a decision. Joohyuk hesitated, saying that receiving something like that for free felt like too much pressure, and that he would rather earn the money and buy it himself later. Gwang insisted that the offer would remain open, stating that the penthouse would be kept vacant for him, making it clear that he was determined to give him the property. Joohyuk felt a quiet sense of guilt, thinking about how far they were going for him. Gwang then shifted to a more serious topic. Joohyuk asked what it was, and Gwang explained that it concerned player Gerald Watson, who was scheduled to visit Korea in a few days. Joohyuk recognized the name immediately. Gwang explained that Gerald Watson was a world-famous player, a magic swordsman, and currently the highest-level player in the world. Joohyuk wondered why this was being brought up. Gwang revealed that the purpose of the visit was to rent the Holy Sword, with a proposed fee of $10 million per use. Joohyuk was shocked, internally questioning whether he had heard that correctly. Gwang confirmed that it was indeed $10 million, roughly 13 billion won. Ju-hyuk froze, his expression stiff with disbelief. Gwang watched his reaction and remarked that even that amount might not be enough, considering that the sword could essentially prevent a national crisis. He added that he intended to stall the negotiation team, since settling for only $10 million felt too low. Ju-hyuk grew tense, sweat forming as he struggled to process everything. He thought about what could happen if pride caused the deal to collapse, and the idea of losing such an opportunity made him uneasy. He quickly cut in, insisting that $10 million was already more than enough, and urged them to accept the offer and move forward with the deal. Later, Ju-hyuk returned home and became emotional while thinking about the 13 billion won. Tears of happiness ran down his face as he realized that his 2 billion won salary could now be treated like pocket money. He thought about his parents and felt that he had finally made it. Feeling hungry, he considered ordering fried chicken, jokbal, beef yuko, or tuna sashimi, even thinking about ordering everything at once. But he stopped himself and chose to eat ramen instead. As he ate, tears continued to fall, not from sadness, but from relief and happiness. He thought about saving tuna sashimi to enjoy later with his summons, realizing that he was already satisfied just eating ramen for now. As night came, Ju-hyuk summoned Cossack again. He mentioned that he was exhausted from moving around all day and would not be able to stay awake to see him off when his time ended. He told Cossack to enjoy the football match as much as he wanted. Cossack began watching the game while Ju-hyuk fell asleep. After Ju-hyuk drifted off, Cossack quietly stepped outside. He reflected that the tracking mark he had placed had no physical form, and that it could not be detected or removed by anyone on Earth. He traced the marks he had placed on the two suspicious figures the day before. Throughout the entire day, he kept sensing those fragments of magic lingering, watching the office without pause. The thought of someone spying on the place where the summoner lived stirred anger in him. He narrowed down their location without hesitation. The scene shifted to a place operating under the name Imperial Traditional Massage. Inside, several individuals reviewed gathered data. They spoke through lists of targets, going over details one by one. A woman named Kim Minji, 32, recently contracted to an elite team, estimated to have reached at least the 30th floor. More names followed, including Jang Dongsu. Then they reached Bongju Hauk, 25, noted as having signed his contract just over 2 months ago, with an estimated position somewhere in the high 20s of the tower. Their conclusion came quickly. No immediate problems. The man leading them, Deng Guanlin, captain of the Northeast Special Forces Brigade of the Chinese People's Liberation Army, made the situation clear. This was a one-time operation. They would seize as many targets as possible within a single hour. Before anything could proceed, one of the men lost his head in an instant. The body collapsed, the severed head hitting the floor with a dull sound. Panic spread fast. The remaining members rushed outside, weapons raised, trying to locate the attacker. Inside, Deng continued organizing player photographs, maintaining focus. Then he noticed someone sitting calmly nearby. The intruder examined a photo with quiet interest, remarking on the appearance of his summoner as if nothing around him mattered. Shock hit Deng immediately. The presence made no sense. He reacted without delay, launching a dagger straight at the intruder. The weapon shattered midair, crushed effortlessly by bare hands. In the next moment, pain exploded through Deng's body as his hand was pierced clean through. The intruder remained composed, stating with cold indifference that he was only observing his summoner's image and had no intention of being interrupted. Deng's scream drew the others back inside. Gunfire erupted instantly. Bullets filled the space, but none of it mattered. The attacker stood untouched, completely unmoved. There was no urgency in him, no tension, only certainty. He made it clear that resistance was pointless. Every one of them would die there. The final thought he left hanging in the air carried weight. They had crossed a line they should never have approached. Cossack was targeted by several men who kept shooting at him. He wasn't hurt. Quickly, he jumped and used his sword to take them down. The men were surprised. They told others to catch him, but Cossack cut off their hands and showed they couldn't grab anything now. Anyone trying to attack him was easily knocked down. Deng watched in disbelief, realizing Cossack could handle top-tier Black Ops agents like toys. He felt scared, not believing what he saw. He wondered if Cossack was a Korean spy or a soldier from the head, but concluded it was something else entirely. Deng remembered such amazing fighting skills only appeared in tower-clear videos. The person before him had that same strong aura of power. Even if Cossack was just a player, How could he use his powers outside the tower? After killing the last agent, Cossack went to Dung. He checked if Dung spoke Korean and asked for an apology. Dung apologized, but it didn't help. Cossack cut off his head anyway, showing no mercy. He made sure Dung knew who he had offended. Then, Cossack tied a red bow on Dung's head and put it on a table before leaving. As he walked away, he panicked, thinking Summoner Bong would hate this outcome. Still, he couldn't change his style. Recalling the warning not to kill, knowing he might be kicked out if caught, he removed the red bow from Dung's head. The next day, Ju Hyuk called them together. He casually mentioned the night before and said Cossack enjoyed watching football. Cossack admitted it was true. Ju Hyuk then noted that he had stocked food in the fridge for Cossack, but he hadn't eaten any. Cossack explained he was too focused on the match. Ju Hyuk found Cossack's enjoyment amusing and suggested they let him know if Cossack wanted to watch another match. Shortly afterward, the three of them prepared for clearing the 35th floor and defeating the Minotaur King. Entering the floor, a system window appeared, informing them that they were in the Black Tower's 35th floor in Korea. The mission required them to defeat 80 Minotaurs of any type and 1 Minotaur King within 13 hours. They started with 0 Minotaurs defeated and 0 Minotaur Kings. The Minotaurs roared loudly when they saw the group, signaling the start of the battle. Ju Hyuk noticed a large number of them swarming around. Princess Dao moved forward first, activating her buff and getting ready to attack. Meatball increased his size and prepared to charge in. Cossack shot forward at incredible speed. He thought about how Meatball had stolen the spotlight on the 34th floor and decided this time he would show everyone what a real SSR rank looked like. With overwhelming speed, Cossack began cutting down Minotaurs one by one. Ju Hyuk watched in confusion, unsure why Cossack was suddenly so aggressive. Meanwhile, Meatball continued crushing Minotaurs and confidently told Cossack to fight safely behind him. Cossack quickly replied, refusing any support and saying he could handle everything himself. Seeing both Cossack and Meatball working together, Ju Hyuk realized their progress was accelerating rapidly. He decided to take down a few enemies himself to prove his worth. Determined, he remembered inventing Shadow Step in mid-air. With that resolve, Ju Hyuk used Shadow Step while airborne and moved toward the Minotaurs to attack. However, due to the WIPM trait, he ended up targeting only weaker Minotaurs. At that moment, the Minotaur King suddenly appeared. Ju Hyuk was shocked and terrified, realizing it had arrived much earlier than expected. Just as the battle began, the Minotaur King charged toward Ju Hyuk to attack. But before it could hit him, Meatball stepped in with a single overwhelming blow. The Minotaur King was hit so hard it flew far away, out of sight. The Minotaur King was defeated. Looking at the time, Ju Hyuk smiled, seeing 759 left. He noticed the power balance had changed a lot. Meatball's strength amazed him openly. Hearing this, Cossack felt sad and fell to the ground. He thought about how he wanted to defeat the boss himself to prove his worth. Soon, a system message said they cleared the 35th floor of Korea's Black Tower with an S++ rank. They got a platinum badge as a reward. The scene then showed where Cossack had killed Dung and his men. Police were investigating. Mina and Gwangil arrived, introducing themselves as team leader Jian Gwangil from the Awakening Management Office and supervisor Lee Mina, a police officer. She thanked them for coming quickly and led them inside. Gwangil asked about case files, and the officer confirmed targets were from the management office. Gwangil noticed something alarming. Sensitive data had been leaked. Seeing Ju Hyuk's photo in the files, he realized even Bong Ju Hyuk's info was exposed. He told Mina to call an emergency meeting for all executives right away. Mina agreed and got ready. In Ju Hyuk's room, he looked at his new reward and wondered excitedly about the 35th badge perk. Cossack suggested getting holy water from a dispenser before trying again, thinking they should pray first. Ju Hyuk thought it might be a good idea, but Princess Dalry stepped in, saying the water wasn't holy. She warned that praying with regular water could bring bad luck. Hearing this, Ju Hyuk felt annoyed and remembered internally that Dalry was called earlier with dispenser water. Seeing Ju Hyuk's face, Dalry got worried and asked if something was wrong or if there was dirt on his face. Ju Hyuk quickly said no and decided not to share his thoughts. He then focused on checking the perks. A system message told him he got a perk for 35 platinum badges. Meanwhile, Cossack thought about an upcoming random summon and hoped it would give better trade chances. Soon, another window popped up, saying Ju Hyuk's tower had received Golden Aegis of Warm Dawn and then Golden Mace of Cold Twilight. Ju Hyuk was surprised to see two items. The first, Golden Aegis of Warm Dawn, boosted concentration, made a bright flash, strengthened both physical and magic defense, and let him reflect attacks when blocking successfully. It also kept him calm in any state and couldn't be destroyed. The second, Golden Mace of Cold Twilight, increased attack speed, froze targets, extended his range, and had a chance to create an ice field on hitting them. This made enemies go to their twilight rest end. Both items were indestructible. Ju Hyuk was very happy, thinking the abilities were amazing. Excited, he started dancing. Cossack noticed Bong smiling widely and told Dalari. Worried about Ju Hyuk getting more reckless, Cossack wondered what they should do. Dalari whispered that they needed to hold his pants to stop him. Trying anything, Cossack doubted it would work, remembering they tried before. He regretted not praying earlier. Dalari said dispenser water wouldn't help and suggested something worse might have happened. Then, Meatball reminded them that when they prayed with dispenser water, Princess Dalari appeared. Dalari was surprised by this and reacted, Meatball appeared clever enough to make jokes now, which surprised disbelief. Meatball explained that warriors don't lie and didn't know how to joke. Cossack agreed, saying it was true and tried to recover. Dalari awkwardly laughed and thought it wasn't a normal dispenser. She believed it had to be a divine one, capable of turning water into holy water and summoning her. Cossack quickly corrected her, stating it was just a regular dispenser, but Dalari insisted they should believe the opposite. As they talked, Meatball reminded everyone that a random summon would soon happen, with their master bringing someone new. This meant there would be 4 summons in total. Since Ju Yuk's trade hadn't been enhanced, the 3-man system would continue for now. Both Dalari and Cossack agreed. Then, Meatball raised a serious question about what would happen if someone more useful was summoned, making one of them leave. Hearing this, Cossack started to sweat nervously as he thought about it. He noted that Meatball could take hits and deal damage, while Dalari offered top-tier support. Feeling unsure about his assassin role, Cossack realized the likely candidate to go would be him if such a situation arose. The mood in Ju Hyuk's gathering suddenly turned serious when Meatball mentioned a scary scenario. He wondered what would happen if another summon proved even more useful than theirs in the future. In that case, one of them might have to leave. Dalray coldly said anyone who felt unnecessary should go voluntarily. She believed a truly valuable servant would naturally take their place. Meatball quickly agreed with Dalray's tough stance, seeing it as the right way for their group. Cossack overheard and grew frustrated. He lowered his head, sadly realizing that both Dalray and Meatball acted as if they were secure from replacement. Though annoyed, he couldn't deny reality. Desperately seeking a solution, Cossack suddenly had an idea, nervously chuckling. Perhaps reaching the 40th floor could bring a trait enhancement, allowing them to clear floors quickly before another summon appeared randomly. Excited by this thought, he suggested they hurry up. Dalray immediately rejected his suggestion angrily. She reminded him that climbing dangerous upper floors was the young master's decision. Then she questioned if Cossack would feel comfortable if Ju Hyuk risked himself for a servant like him. Her words instantly dampened Cossack's spirits. Looking dejected, he awkwardly admitted he hadn't meant it that way. After some hesitation, he sadly accepted reality and quietly decided to step down gracefully when the time came. Still, he admitted his time with the group had been enjoyable. Before the mood worsened, Ju Hyuk suddenly arrived and interrupted their discussion. He demanded to know who told Cossack to leave. Meatball panicked and tried to defend himself, insisting he hadn't spoken up and had only discussed a hypothetical situation. Ju Hyuk then turned toward Meatball, challenging his logic. He asked if Meatball would step down if an ideal shield knight appeared someday. Looking at Dalray, he questioned whether she would be discarded if a saintess or priest emerged. Ju Hyuk firmly declared that if he was climbing the tower, he didn't plan on leaving anyone behind. Ju Hyuk assured them that this team would remain intact until their climb ended. After speaking those words, Ju Hyuk privately pondered if his statement sounded impressive. The emotional declaration left Cossack deeply moved. Tears streamed down his face as he repeatedly thanked Ju Hyuk. Realizing how anxious Cossack was, Ju Hyuk apologized and decided to act quickly. He declared that they would keep clearing floors non-stop until a trait enhancement allowing 4 simultaneous summons appeared. Cossack felt touched but worried about Ju Hyuk overworking himself for him. He insisted it was okay and admitted he wouldn't forgive himself if Ju Hyuk pushed too hard because of him. Ju Hyuk merely smiled before suggesting another approach. He announced that, in the meantime, he would step back completely and not engage with any monsters at all. He humorously asked if this still counted as overdoing things and questioned if anyone could object now. Dalray immediately got motivated and declared she would shake her ritual bells so hard they might crack. Meatball proudly pledged to personally protect the summoner and achieve the S++ clear rank. Finally, Juhyuk turned towards Kasek and asked if he was joining them. Kasek burst into tears again and passionately agreed that he was definitely in. The scene then shifted from the tower to an underground briefing room of the Awakening Management Department in Hanam-dong, Seoul. Inside the meeting room, Gwangal explained how serious the recent incident was. He clarified it wasn't just a simple murder case, but a kidnapping attempt targeting the elite team responsible for the nation's future. At first glance, the victim seemed ordinary, but NIS Director Park Il-jun revealed they were highly trained soldiers according to autopsy results. Another bald director noted that the real target had been the owner of the Holy Sword and warned about the significant loss this would cause the nation. Therefore, they needed to find out who was behind it. Fight began. Park Il-jun let out a heavy sigh and acknowledged that things were tough. With everyone involved already dead, there was almost no evidence left for investigation. At this point, Gwangal firmly said China probably did it. He explained that China abducting skilled players from all over the world had become widely known beyond mere rumors. He added that if any traces remained in Korea, they needed to thoroughly examine the entire abduction network. Although he didn't like admitting it, Gwangal admitted that the failed kidnapping attempt ended only by chance. Deep down, he was almost grateful for the mysterious killer who stopped them. The next day, Juhyuk and his summons arrived at the 36th floor of the Black Tower in Korea. Juhyuk asked everyone if they were ready to push themselves hard until they got the next perk. All three summons confidently said they were fully prepared. The narration noted that floors 36 to 40 housed large humanoid monsters called ogres, smaller than minotaurs but incredibly fast and dangerous. Despite this, Meatball proved much faster and stronger than the ogres, with Shaman Dalray constantly applying wide-area binding debuffs and caustic effects, becoming increasingly aggressive as an assassin. The team easily overpowered the monsters. As a result, Juhyuk achieved an S-clear rank on the 36th floor of the Black Tower. The group continued using the same strategy while aiming for trait enhancement rewards. The next day, they entered the 37th floor where lightning-fast ogres appeared. However, the team still dominated them. On the 38th floor, new ogres attacked from the air with incredible jumping power. Yet, Meatball remained faster and stronger than all of them. Then came the 39th floor, where even more dangerous ogres were present. These monsters used cunning hit-and-run tactics to buy time and avoid direct fights. Despite their tricks, Meatball still completely overwhelmed every single ogre with raw speed and power. The team joked that throwing Meatball directly at the ogres worked perfectly. Soon after, numerous system notices began appearing one after another. The system announced that Juhyuk had achieved S++ clear ranks on the 35th, 36th, 37th, 38th, and finally the 39th floor of the Black Tower. This achievement shocked everyone. Many people online discussed it intensely over 5 straight days. Some compared the mysterious S++ record holder to Nam Ji-eun, but a few still favored Nam Ji-eun. Most argued that no ordinary player could match 39 consecutive S++ clears. Others insisted that if someone was truly skilled, they had to recognize the S++ record holder without question. Many found it hard to believe anyone would compare their achievements. Some joked about excessive national pride and suggested everyone have a drink instead. Meanwhile, many worried about the player's pace. They noted he had been clearing nonstop for 4 days straight, which seemed absurd. Security around Juhyuk's office recently tightened significantly. The number of guards increased greatly. The day before the 40th floor clear, Juhyuk planned to visit somewhere important early morning. Leaving at 4 a.m. made him nervous due to suspicion. However, he remembered a talisman that blocked perception. After talking cautiously with a guard, Juhyuk felt relieved. The talisman not only hid his face but also scattered others' attention. With this, he passed the heavily guarded area without raising suspicion despite strict security. Outside, Juhyuk flagged down a taxi and got in. He politely asked to be taken to Gongju Traditional Market in Changnam and requested slightly faster driving. The driver was surprised by the destination's distance, but after hearing 500,000 won offered, his attitude changed instantly. Excitedly, he told Juhyuk to fasten his seatbelt tightly. They eventually reached Gongju Traditional Market. Upon arrival, Juhyuk called Kasek and apologized for dragging him out while he was in the bathroom. Kasek insisted everything was fine. talking about loyalty. The two then walked through the market together, discussing what they needed to buy. Ju-hyuk suggested starting grocery shopping cheerfully, and Kasek agreed happily. They bought various foods, fruits, and supplies throughout the market before heading off, towards Mount Yungsin. Upon arrival, Ju-hyuk called Dalray and Meatball over as well. Dalray politely said she had been waiting for him. Meatball proudly announced he would carry all the luggage himself and told everyone to give it to him. As they ventured further into the area, Dalray smiled gently and noted that although this world was different from hers, the mountains looked strikingly similar. This made her believe the place she mentioned earlier might still exist. Ju-hyuk asked everyone to follow him. Meatball then placed Ju-hyuk on his shoulders while carrying their belongings, and they continued walking together. Eventually, they found a hidden hiking spot. Realizing such a beautiful location existed off the usual trail, Ju-hyuk was amazed. Dalray instructed Meatball to move a big rock aside. He complied immediately and pushed it away. Beneath the rock, Ju-hyuk discovered an altar. Dalray then told everyone to clean the altar thoroughly, using the water they had collected earlier. As they cleaned, Dalray calmly sharpened her sword against the stone. Seeing her dressed in white mourning clothes while sharpening a blade made Ju-hyuk feel very nervous. He secretly wondered if she still held a grudge because of his constant nagging. After cleaning was done, Dalray started her ritual. She floated into the air and prayed for the heavens to bless young master Bong Ju-hyuk with great fortune. Meanwhile, Ju-hyuk repeatedly prayed fervently, hoping for a trait enhancement to appear. After completing the ritual, they entered the 40th floor immediately. A system message appeared, stating a 13-hour time limit along with clear conditions. Eliminate 80 ogres of any type and 11 twin-head ogres. Ordinary ogres posed no threat to their team. Each twin-head ogre was quickly annihilated as soon as it appeared. Shortly after, another notification announced that Ju-hyuk had achieved an S-clear rank on the 40th floor of the Black Tower. The system rewarded him with a platinum badge for obtaining an S++ clear. Another message explained perks would be awarded after collecting 40 platinum badges. Ju-hyuk wondered if his long-awaited trait enhancement might finally arrive. Upon receiving this perk, Kasek returned home feeling so elated that he shouted with joy. Ju-hyuk and Dalray quickly asked him to be quiet. Feeling embarrassed, Kasek grew upset and apologized. Ju-hyuk then examined his inventory to check the new reward. Inside, he found a unique ticket labeled as a roulette token. The system explained that tearing this one-time use ticket would activate a random selection process. However, if not used within an hour, the chance would vanish forever. Ju-hyuk stared at the roulette system in disbelief. It contained numerous sections with various tickets, skills, potions, stones, items, and herbs. Eventually, he spotted the trait enhancement reward on the wheel. Yet, this section was incredibly small, barely visible like a needle's eye. Seeing such slim odds, Kasek panicked and asked if they were doomed. Ju-hyuk admitted that spinning the roulette remained their only option. Confused, Kasek nervously inquired if it meant using an actual spinning wheel. Ju-hyuk confirmed this and explained that while the trait enhancement section existed, its probability was extremely low. He then awkwardly suggested if anyone wanted to tear the ticket for him instead. The moment he said this, everyone suddenly became busy and avoided eye contact. Ju-hyuk immediately complained about their sudden inactivity. To calm himself, he told everyone to trust the ritual they had performed earlier and warned them not to blame him if nothing came of it. Everyone agreed that blaming him was unnecessary. Finally, Ju-hyuk tightly held onto the roulette ticket, desperately praying for his desired outcome, the simultaneous for-summoned trait enhancement. Ju-hyuk impatiently stared at the endlessly spinning roulette, almost reaching out to touch it in frustration. After what felt like an eternity, the wheel finally halted on trait enhance, prompting him to cheer with joy as his summoned creatures rejoiced alongside him. A system message appeared, confirming the enhancement of his awakened trait and noting that he could now maintain 4 simultaneous summons. Ju-hyuk declared that a summon cooldown lasting a week had been activated, advising everyone to take it easy for now, and casually mentioned having chicken might be good. The mention of chicken instantly sparked excitement among all his summoned creatures. Meanwhile, at Incheon International Airport, Gerald Watson rushed out of an arriving plane with great enthusiasm. Director Antonio was puzzled by Gerald's sudden dash, but learned that he had been eagerly waiting to take revenge on the Dark Specters. Antonio reminded him they had already defeated them before, but Gerald brought up Nam Gayan from Korea, who completed the challenge in just 10 hours. Gerald insisted he needed to match this time for true revenge. Antonio silently worried about Gerald's reckless nature as he reluctantly followed. At the awakened management department, John Guang-il warmly welcomed Gerald and director Antonio before introducing himself. Gerald quickly got down to business by asking about the Holy Sword, making Guang-il chuckle at his eagerness. Soon, Guang-il led him to the floor where the Holy Sword was stored. Gerald paid a hefty rental fee and stared directly at the legendary weapon. Guang-il warned him to follow the contract's terms, but Gerald confidently grabbed the sword and declared that he would not lose. Immediately afterward, the system announced the start of the Black Tower's 66th floor mission: defeat 10 Dark Specters within 15 hours. Gerald entered the floor and began continuously slaughtering monsters, thinking the 20 million rental fee was well worth it. 5 days later, Ju-hyuk had locked himself in his room with a warning sign outside, instructing everyone not to disturb him. He reflected on advice from Guion Dalre, the greatest shaman of Cheon Empire, while his synchronization rate steadily increased to 95%. Ju-hyuk patiently waited for a random summon and even informed team leader Guion and his family that he would be away for some time. Money for food, he chose to live on simple instant noodles, thinking he had conquered his love for eating. The day finally came. Ju-hyuk called in 3 of his existing summons and noticed their worried looks, wondering if they feared a new summon might replace them. To avoid tension, he started the random summoning right away. A small, plump hamster appeared from the circle. The system identified it as Razix, an R-grade worker-type beastkin. Razix could stay for 10 hours, had no satisfaction rating yet, and needed a cooldown of 3 hours after being unsummoned. Ju-hyuk stared in disbelief. Not only was the summon just a hamster, but it was only R-grade and classified as a worker. Deep down, he felt this was a failure. Meanwhile, his other summons instantly adored Razix's cuteness, trembling nervously. Razix tearfully asked if he should return home. Feeling guilty, Ju-hyuk gently said he would summon him again later and unsummoned him for now. Disappointed but pragmatic, Ju-hyuk decided to make use of Razix somehow. Still, the outcome felt anticlimactic. Another system notification appeared, revealing a skill cooldown reset ticket. Galray encouraged Ju-hyuk to see it as luck, while Kasak explained they needed someone to help summoner Bong climb the tower. Meatball confidently assured him things would work out this time. Encouraged by their support, Ju-hyuk thanked them sincerely before attempting another random summon. This time felt different. Ju-hyuk sensed something special was coming. Soon, a Taoist immortal appeared from the circle. The system introduced him with an intimidating description: the greatest enemy of Marim, the most sinister figure in Jonggu, and responsible for countless deaths. His name was Guangma, the Mad Demon. He was LSSR Rarity, legendary super rare, a human-type Miram warrior who could stay for 3 hours before needing a cooldown of 3 hours. Ju-hyuk felt uneasy from this horrifying description. Surprisingly, however, Guangma politely greeted him. Relieved, Ju-hyuk returned the greeting, thinking at least the summon appeared polite on the surface. But Guangma's history was soon revealed. In an age of chaos, Morim and the government had a tacit agreement not to interfere with each other. Guangma broke this taboo by the emperor was beheaded and his head was shown in the market square. Consequently, the Morim alliance, the unconventional faction, and even the demonic cult joined forces to declare him their public enemy. After 7 days and nights of fighting, he was finally slain by the combined efforts of Morim's top leaders. Upon hearing this tale, Ju-hyuk realized Guangma truly was terrifying. Yet, he also grasped that such a monster must have immense strength. Guangma glanced at Ju-hyuk's existing summons, introduced them, and encouraged everyone to greet each other. However, the 3 summons stood awkwardly. Guangma coldly dismissed them as insignificant beings not worth speaking to. He then asked how many towers had collapsed so far. Ju-hyuk replied that 1 tower had fallen, which seemed to ease Guangma slightly. When Ju-hyuk explained humanity's conquest only reached the 67th floor, Guangma disclosed a grim truth. Once humanity surpassed the 71st floor, collapsing towers would start appearing globally. He warned that these collapsed towers pierced into the earth like giant nails and permanently corrupted it. Fortunately, things were not dire yet since just 1 tower had fallen. Guangma then explained the cruel aspect of the tower system. Individuals could only enter towers within their own countries due to nationality restrictions, making the system extremely cunning. He assured Ju-hyuk that his country would remain safe because Guangma was now present, stating Ju-hyuk no longer needed weaker summons. However, he pointed out that saving just one nation meant nothing if humanity perished. With a sinister grin, Gwangma declared he would help Ju-hyuk conquer the world itself. He vowed to spill blood if necessary and promised Ju-hyuk would eventually be the sole emperor ruling over all humans. Horrified, Ju-hyuk wondered if Gwangma had lost his mind. Quickly, he ordered him not to do anything reckless, but Gwangma calmly refused, insisting such actions were essential for saving both Ju-hyuk and the world. Following his third belief principle, Gwangma announced he would return after eliminating all politicians in the country and placing Ju-hyuk at the top of power. The moment he tried to leave, Ju-hyuk's 3 summons immediately pointed their weapons at him, ordering him to stop. Gwangma responded with a terrifying glare, questioning how insignificant beings dared show such intent. As he approached, Ju-hyuk noticed the situation was getting dangerously out of hand. To prevent things from worsening, he quickly dismissed Gwangma. 3 hours later, the mood shifted dramatically. Ju-hyuk and the other summoned beings gathered around Rosix, joyfully holding up the small hamster and doting on him. Meanwhile, Rosix was still in shock over the sudden affection showered upon it.